Everyone called it a trash game, unfair, unbalanced, and impossible to beat. But for Jinhyuk, it was his only escape. 11 years later, the game merges with reality, and suddenly, every monster, every trap, every nightmare he survived, is now real. But this time, he's got the most broken power of them all, the ability to copy any skill. The story begins with the faint hum of a computer filled the dim room. On the monitor, the flickering light of a virtual world cast eerie shadows across a young man's face. A voice, mocking, disembodied, echoed from the speakers. Another MMORPG, huh? Just another broken mess. Clunky controls, dull mechanics, who even plays this garbage? The young man leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. The pale glow of the screen reflected in his tired eyes as he mumbled, "You're not wrong." On screen, heroes charged toward an enormous tower, a structure so vast it seemed to pierce the heavens. The game's title glimmered faintly in the corner, Tower of Challenges. "This one fits the description perfectly," he muttered, voice laced with irony. He remembered how, when the game first launched, it swept through Korea like wildfire. Veteran gamers, old-timers, as he called them, had made it their life's mission to conquer this digital monstrosity. They stopped eating, sleeping, even living normally, all for the sake of a climb no one could finish. But 3 years later, the truth was undeniable. Tower of Trials, he said, eyes narrowing, isn't a game. It's punishment. Images flashed through his mind, endless dungeons, lethal traps, grotesque monsters that devoured players in seconds. The Great Gate Guardian, an enemy so powerful it had been branded invincible. The polar region, where temperatures plummeted to -60 degrees, freezing even the strongest adventurers within hours. And the labyrinth, a maze that stretched over 10,000 kilometers, an endless loop of despair. This wasn't entertainment, he whispered. It was torture. Anger surged. With a shout, he yanked off his virtual reality headset and hurled it to the ground. The screen flickered, static crackling as the game world faded to black. The company almost went bankrupt after that, he said under his breath, recalling the chaos, walls shattered, blood and debris scattered in his memories of those who'd pushed too far. But a few maniacs still refused to quit. And among those maniacs was Jinhyuk. His breath came ragged, sweat dripping down his temples. The tower's summit loomed behind him, 50 floors conquered, and the final system notification blinked before his eyes. "Congratulations. Player Jinhyuk has cleared the Tower of Challenges." He blinked at it in disbelief. "Did I really do it?" Blood trickled from his palm, his body trembling. "I wasn't even trying to win," he murmured. "I was just curious." But Jinhyuk wasn't like the others. He hadn't brute-forced his way through. He had memorized every pattern, learned every trick, and repeated every failure until perfection was all that remained. 11 years. 11 years of his life spent climbing this cursed tower. As he stepped through the final exit, he turned back, staring at the now silent behemoth. "I didn't think I'd actually clear it all," he said softly, a laugh escaping him. "Should have at least streamed it. That would have made for a hell of a finale." He opened his virtual interface, debating aloud, should I upload the ending to YouTube? Even a flop would get a few clicks. Just then, a glowing envelope icon materialized beside him. Curious, he opened it. "Thank you for playing Tower of Challenges, Jinhyuk. System notice, major reboot update scheduled in 12 hours. He chuckled. A reboot? After all this time? A smirk tugged at his lips. How much are they even spending on this thing? Leaning against the cracked wall behind him, he laughed again, tired, amused, maybe even a little sad. They must be planning something big. But whatever it is, I'm done. No more towers for me. The world around him began to collapse, the virtual sky fracturing, the floor disintegrating beneath his feet. He closed his eyes. "No matter what update you roll out," he muttered, "I'm not coming back." Moments later, the headset came off. The illusion shattered, replaced by the cramped mess of his apartment. Stacks of instant noodle cups and energy drink cans littered his desk. Plastic bags overflowed with trash. The only light came from the moon filtering through his window. He stretched, groaning. "Guess it's time for my last broadcast," he said with a wry smile. "Not that it matters. No family, no real obligations, just me and 500,000 won a month." As he stood by the window, the cool night air brushed against his face. Stars twinkled faintly above the city, far beyond his reach. "People used to tell me to become a fighter," he said quietly. "But right now, money's worth more than glory." The moon hung high in the sky, and for the first time in a long while, Jinhyuk allowed himself to just breathe. The faint hum of his PC echoing through his messy apartment. Empty cans, snack wrappers, and boxes of half-eaten food cluttered the table. He had just gone live, and within 3 minutes, over 20 people had already joined his stream. The chat immediately exploded. "Why were you streaming so early, dude? Did you forget the schedule again? Yo, what's with all that food? You throwing a party?" Jinhyuk chuckled as he scrolled through their teasing comments, his face illuminated by the soft blue glow of his monitor. On his desk lay a ridiculous feast: chips, ramen, fried chicken, and a lineup of sodas and alcohol bottles. His viewers laughed even harder. "Streamer buffet. Look at this man living the dream. How's your liver holding up, bro?" For a moment, it was all just light-hearted fun. The kind of cozy chaos that filled Jinhyuk's lonely nights. But then, the smile faded from his face. His expression hardened. He leaned toward the mic. "Everyone, there's something I need to tell you." The chat went wild with confusion. "Wait, what's wrong? Why do you sound so serious? You're not quitting, are you?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared quietly at the monitor, his hand gripping a mug of alcohol. Then, with a forced laugh, he said, "Relax. I'm just catching the mood." He raised the mug and took a long drink before exhaling heavily. But as he looked at the screen again, his voice dropped low. "Still, tomorrow, I'll make it official. I think it's time to wind this down." The chat froze for a moment, disbelief flooding in. Then came a stream of desperate messages, but Jinhyuk barely read them. He kept drinking. One bottle. Then another. Then a third. Hours passed before he finally passed out on his bed, surrounded by the empty bottles. When he woke, sunlight was filtering through the blinds. His head throbbed violently, his stomach churned. "Damn hangover," he groaned, dragging himself up from the bed. "I need to post that Tower Clear video before I forget." He pressed the power button on the PC. The familiar hum started up, but something felt wrong. The monitor flickered. His eyes widened. A live stream window appeared automatically. The title read, "Tower of Trials became reality, live." "What the?" he muttered. Then he saw the viewer count. 331,750. The man who started the stream said that, "This tower is from Tower of Trials launched 11 years ago." The numbers climbed rapidly as the screen's colors distorted, fading into a blood-red hue. The chat box vanished, replaced by a strange static sound. This can't be real," Jinhyuk whispered, staring at the glowing red symbols flashing across the screen. He recognized it instantly. That effect only appeared when someone started the Tower of Challenges for the first time. But that was impossible, the servers were long gone. Then, a clear system notification appeared in front of his eyes, not on the screen, but in real life. System notice: the first stage of the new Tower of Challenges update has been completed. Before Jinhyuk could even react, the world outside darkened. The daylight vanished, replaced by a deep crimson sky. The city was swallowed by shadows, and all power shut down. Then another message appeared, not just to him, but to everyone. Mothers, children, office workers, all over the world, people froze in terror as glowing text appeared before their eyes. All players must reach the next floor of the tower within 90 days. Failure to do so will result in the destruction of humanity. Jinhyuk's chair toppled over with a crash. His breathing quickened. Sweat trickled down his forehead as he stared at the window. Adaptation level increasing. Reality synchronization, complete. "What the hell?" he whispered, trembling. "Humanity, destroyed?" The next message confirmed his worst fear. First phase of the tower update, complete. His room was empty now, except for the overturned chair and the faint flicker of his monitor. Jinhyuk's heartbeat thundered in his ears. "Stay calm," he muttered to himself. "You need to stay calm." But his shaking hands betrayed his words. He snatched his jacket from the chair, threw it on, and rushed toward the door. If the Tower of Challenges really became real, he thought, then there's no time to hesitate. He sprinted down the apartment stairs, jumping 3 steps at a time, until he was leaping over entire flights. His pulse raced. His face twisted into a wild grin. "The world might be ending," he said breathlessly, "but I've already cleared it once." Outside, the city was chaos. Sirens blared. People screamed. The once bright skyline was burning red under the blood-colored sky. In Central City, panicked voices filled the streets. "The sky's gone red. We need to get out of Korea. There's no point, the towers are everywhere." One girl held up her phone, showing the same glowing message hovering in the air. "Look! Every country's getting it." Jinhyuk dashed past the crowd and into the subway station. He stopped at the top of the stairs, breathing heavily as he looked down into the darkness. "Now's not the time to run," he told himself. "It's time to move forward." He hurried down the steps, mind racing. If the tower has appeared for real, then I need to reach the North Zone first. That's one of the few safe territories outside the tower's boundary, and it's the closest. At the bottom of the stairs, a massive fountain stood, marble angels frozen mid-flight. Above it, a sign glowed faintly, Central Underground. Suddenly, a new notification appeared before his eyes. You have entered an event area. Jin-hyuk looked around. The underground station was filled with people, dozens of them, all wearing the same stunned expression. He recognized their faces. These were players who had once played the first version of the Tower of Challenges. He walked among them calmly, his eyes sharp. The others glanced at him but stayed silent, too busy sizing each other up. Everyone's watching everyone else, he thought. No one knows what's going to happen next. He realized something important: the number of event items that would appear here was limited. If luck was on his side, maybe 5 would spawn at most. Then, from behind him, a voice called out, clear and familiar. Hey, you there! You're Jin-hyuk, right? Jin-hyuk turned, his eyes narrowing as the sound of the city's chaos echoed above. The tower had begun. Jin-hyuk turned around, startled by the sudden voice behind him. A man stood there with a broad grin plastered across his face, as if seeing an old friend brought him genuine delight. Well, isn't this a miracle? The man laughed. The shut-in gamer himself actually stepped outside. I thought you'd still be in your room, playing with your toys. It was Jong-soo, a BJ, broadcast jockey, from Paprika TV, boasting over 500,000 subscribers, a celebrity streamer and, more importantly, the representative of the company Jin-hyuk once belonged to. Jin-hyuk's expression hardened. Shouldn't you be doing a live broadcast right now? He asked coldly, glancing at the crowd gathered behind Jong-soo. Jong-soo followed his gaze, his smirk widening. What, this? You can't tell what's happening here? Looks like the perfect scene for another viral broadcast. He gave Jin-hyuk a light push on the shoulder, pretending to be casual. So, tell me, what floor did you reach? And why hide it from your dear colleague? Colleague? Jin-hyuk repeated in his head, his jaw tightening. He remembered those broadcasts all too well, the company that Jong-soo had built. A company that lured streamers with promises of fame and fortune, only to drown them in unfair contracts. The more they streamed, the deeper they sank into a swamp of debt and exploitation. And those who dared to protest? Their voices were silenced, crushed beneath the weight of corporate greed. Jin-hyuk recalled one desperate BJ, crying during a live broadcast. He had stared directly into the webcam, before ripping it off the monitor and hurling it at his contract in despair. That memory burned deep inside Jin-hyuk. Because one by one, the friends he had started with, those who had climbed up from nothing beside him, had all abandoned the company, broken and betrayed. Hey, Jong-soo's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. He grabbed Jin-hyuk's shoulder, smiling brightly. I know you're a great player. And your mukbangs? Legendary. That's why, he leaned in. I'm ready to change your contract. Just for you. But Jin-hyuk's eyes were as cold as winter steel. The world's changed, he said quietly. Before Jong-soo could respond, BAM. Jin-hyuk's fist slammed into his face. Blood sprayed from Jong-soo's nose as 2 of his teeth hit the ground with a faint clink. Watch your mouth, Jin-hyuk growled. Jong-soo collapsed, clutching his bleeding face, groaning in pain. Jin-hyuk looked down at him, his voice low and calm. Strange. I actually feel better now. Turning away, he walked off, muttering, it's time. Around the nearby fountain, particles of light began to shimmer. The water started bubbling, then roiling violently. In a sudden burst, a massive tree erupted from the fountain, its trunk twisting skyward, its lush green canopy radiating power. The air trembled with its presence. Players gasped in awe and terror. The same as the Tower of Trials, Jin-hyuk murmured, a grin forming on his lips. So my memory was right? A glowing message appeared before everyone's eyes. The mangrove of greed continues to grow. From its branches, red fruits began to bloom, glimmering like rubies under a warm aura. Jin-hyuk's eyes narrowed. Stats-boosting fruits. Agility, strength, mana, only 4 of them. The moment those words sank in, chaos erupted. Players lunged for the tree, clawing and shoving each other to reach the fruits. Fists flew, boots kicked, and screams filled the air. Amid the frenzy, a bloodied handkerchief dropped to the ground. It belonged to Jong-soo. He staggered toward Jin-hyuk, wiping the blood from his mouth. Listen, he shouted, desperation cracking his voice. If we work together, we can share the fruits. Split them in half, win for both of us. Jin-hyuk didn't even look at him. His gaze was locked on the tree. Sit down if you don't know what's going on, he said coldly. It's not time yet. His tone was firm, calm, yet commanding. Jong-soo hesitated. Jin-hyuk's confident smile didn't falter for a second. One player managed to grab a fruit and bit into it greedily. A system window flashed. Agility +3. It works. It really works, the man shouted, waving his arms in joy. Jinhyuk watched him silently. Ordinary people, he muttered. They have no idea what this tree truly is. He observed as more players climbed, each one consumed by greed, unaware of the danger lurking within. Then it began. The tree's roots writhed like serpents and lashed out, striking the ground with tremendous force. Screams erupted as players scrambled to escape. The more fruits eaten, one terrified man yelled, the more violent it gets. Panic spread. Players fled in every direction, terrified. All except two. Jinhyuk stood still, calm amidst the chaos. Jong-soo, trembling, turned to run, until Jinhyuk's voice stopped him. Giving up already? Of course. Jong-soo shouted. That thing's insane. Jinhyuk sighed. The real reward of this event only appears after all the fruits are eaten. Jong-soo froze. You're serious? Jinhyuk tilted his head. If I wasn't, would I still be standing here? A bead of sweat rolled down Jong-soo's temple. Then, his expression twisted into a crooked grin. So that's why you didn't move, you were waiting for this. He spat to the side, then asked, so what now? Jinhyuk's eyes gleamed with unwavering resolve. We go inside, he said, pointing toward the thrashing tree. If we move together, we'll just become easy targets. Approach from both sides, understood. Jong-soo blinked, stunned by his calmness. You're saying, we split its attention? Exactly. Jinhyuk slipped his hands into his pockets and smiled. The plan had begun. Jinhyuk glanced at Jong-soo, his tone sharp and cold. If even one of us hesitates, he said, eyes narrowing, it's over. Jong-soo chuckled, wiping the blood from his mouth. Relax, man. It's not my first day in this game either. A tense silence followed, then Jinhyuk muttered, move. In the next instant, they split apart, Jinhyuk darting to the left, Jong-soo sprinting to the right. They surrounded the enormous mangrove tree, each taking a different angle of approach. But before they could get close, massive roots burst from the ground, slicing through the air like whips. Jinhyuk twisted his body mid-step, dodging the first root by inches. The sharp wind from its swing grazed his cheek. He turned his head to check on Jong-soo. And froze. Jong-soo stood motionless, grinning like a lunatic. Who would listen to a guy like you, he sneered. Why don't you be the bait? His grin widened into something grotesque. Jinhyuk's eyes hardened, his voice calm but dripping with venom. Still the same scum, huh? Another root shot toward him. He dodged effortlessly, landing light on his feet. To those who become bait, he muttered under his breath, that would be, you. The next root, redirected from Jinhyuk's dodge, snapped toward Jong-soo with deadly precision. What? The thick vine coiled around Jong-soo's legs, yanking him off his feet. Before he could react, the roots wrapped around his torso, tightening like a snake crushing its prey. Why me? Let me go! Jong-soo screamed, thrashing in panic. Jinhyuk didn't even glance his way. His steps were steady, focused solely on the tree ahead. If you hate it, he said coolly, maybe complain to your lawyer. The roots climbed higher, encasing Jong-soo completely. Tears streamed down his face as his voice broke. I don't want to die like this. Please. The tree's roots constricted and crushed him into a bloody pulp. Jinhyuk exhaled slowly. Have a nice trip, trash. He turned back toward the mangrove tree. Its massive roots writhed, sensing his approach. Just a little further, he murmured, his boots splashing in the fountain's water. The ground trembled. Roots lunged again, slicing through the air from every direction. Left, 22 degrees, Jinhyuk whispered, eyes darting rapidly as he calculated each attack trajectory. Right, 35 degrees. He weaved between them like a shadow, his movements precise and fluid. Each dodge was perfectly timed, each motion deliberate. The roots struck where he had just been. But Jinhyuk was gone. They crashed into one another, smashing violently into the trunk instead. Cracks splintered up the bark, ripping open the tree's center. The roots opened a path, Jinhyuk muttered, a wicked grin curling on his lips. Inside the ruptured trunk, a pulsating core glowed, a beating heart of pure magic. The mangrove core, he whispered. Just like in the game. No errors. Not a single deviation. His hand brushed against a broken fragment of a root beside him. He picked it up, the faint glow of power running through it. Scarlet light flared in his eyes. How about we make this interesting? Jinhyuk smirked, raising the fragment like a blade. Let's end this quickly, tree. The mangrove roared, its entire body trembling in rage. The roots rose again, this time shimmering with a dark crimson aura. A message blinked in Jinhyuk's vision. Mangrove of Greed has activated, blood-sucking vines. TCH, he clicked his tongue. Even for an old mob, that's gonna be hard to dodge. The roots lashed forward, slicing through the air with terrifying speed. Jinhyuk's grip tightened. Then, with a twist of his wrist, Clang. He deflected the first root with a dull thud, the shockwave sending a burst of air across the ground. The vine passed so close that it grazed his cheek, leaving a thin red line. The next roots came in a flurry, but Jinhyuk's eyes gleamed with battle focus. Each motion was deliberate, every strike perfectly timed. He flipped his blade fragment, adjusting its angle, redirecting every incoming root like a master swordsman guiding the flow of a storm. In his head, he smirked. I can twist the trajectory, bend it any way I want. The roots clashed, tangled, and tore into the tree's trunk again, destroying it from within. And amidst the chaos, Jinhyuk stood there, his eyes glowing bright red, calm and unshaken. Now then, he murmured, his voice low and dangerous. Let's finish this. The roots of the mangrove shuddered violently, then began twisting together, merging into one monstrous, pulsating limb. The ground trembled as the enormous root reared back like a serpent, its shadow swallowing Jinhyuk whole. Coming for me, huh? Jinhyuk murmured, eyes sharp and calm. No need to get nervous. A faint smirk tugged at his lips. Then, his right eye ignited with a bright blue flame. The massive root lunged. In an instant, Jinhyuk moved. His body blurred, blade flashing as he redirected every incoming strike. The roots split apart midair, slamming into the ground around him with explosive force, breaking through concrete and shaking the entire plaza. Dust and debris swirled, but Jinhyuk walked forward, unscathed, his expression composed. Only a thin scratch lined his cheek, glinting under the light. I've been through this 100 times already, he said with a grin, brushing his hair back. He raised his hand. The air around him trembled. Sweat dripped from his brow as he approached the tree's luminous trunk. Behind the dense green canopy, a faint blue light began to shine. Tiny butterflies of azure glow fluttered out from the leaves, spiraling upward like floating stars. Jinhyuk's eyes narrowed. Sleep butterflies. He covered his mouth and nose, stepping aside as the glowing insects circled him. Their wings shimmered softly, releasing glittering dust into the air. Sleep pollen, he thought grimly. A defense mechanism. One breath, and you're out cold. The insects swarmed closer, but Jinhyuk waved them away, holding his breath. The trick's simple, he smirked inwardly. Just don't breathe. He dashed forward, cutting through the haze of shimmering wings. The giant tree loomed ahead, veins glowing red within its trunk. Found you, he whispered. Jinhyuk thrust his palm toward the tree. Boom! A deafening impact echoed through the air. The space rippled with shockwaves, light flaring across the battlefield. Wind whipped through his black hair, strands flying wildly across his face. Sweat beaded on his skin, and a red glint burned in his eyes. From beneath him, roots lashed upward once again, only to falter. The enormous tree groaned, its bark splitting down the center as the system's voice rang in his ears. System message, player, anonymous, has defeated the mangrove of greed. The world tree split cleanly in half, its once vibrant leaves fading to gray. The fountain's water shimmered under the settling dust. Jinhyuk exhaled, a grin spreading across his face. Didn't think all that boring timing practice would actually pay off. The system chimed again. Honor level achievement will be recorded within 24 hours. Please enter your player name. Jinhyuk frowned, staring at the glowing blue window. My name? So it's asking for personal info now? He tilted his head, thinking. Revealing his identity would stir chaos, especially once people realized who he was. No way, he muttered. Anonymity suits me better. A new prompt appeared. Face will be hidden via mosaic. Voice will be altered for anonymity. Jinhyuk chuckled softly. Not perfect, but fair enough. He turned back to the fallen tree, placing his hand on its cracked trunk. Now for the real prize. He pushed his arm deep inside the hollow bark. After a moment, his fingers brushed something smooth and cold. A grin curved his lips as he pulled out a small jade orb, gleaming faintly in his palm. The tree's core, he whispered, tightening his grip. System message, item acquired, heart of the mangrove tree. He rolled the sphere between his fingers, its green glow reflecting in his eyes. If a single fruit boosts strength, agility, and mana by 3 points each, he mused, then the heart should be worth at least 12. The thought made him chuckle. Even after 50 floors, nothing came close to this kind of loot. Without hesitation, Jinhyuk popped the jade sphere into his mouth. The moment he swallowed, a blinding light exploded in his chest. His body trembled as raw energy coursed through him. He opened his status window. Player level, 1. Available stat points, 12. A wicked smile formed. The strongest level 1 player, huh? Not bad. Hours later, the world was already buzzing. Breaking news, unknown player defeats Mangrove of Greed. First victory in the Tower of Challenge recorded. Comment sections exploded with disbelief and excitement. Most people dismissed it as fake, just another online hoax. But somewhere in the chaos, a video quietly began trending. Its thumbnail showed a masked player surrounded by swirling debris. His face was hidden by mosaic. His voice distorted. Yet his presence, the confidence in his stance, was unmistakable. It was Jinhyuk, the first conqueror of the tower's new world. The moment the video of the battle went live, all the skepticism that had flooded the forums vanished in an instant. Viewers flooded the comments with awe and excitement, their disbelief replaced by pure fascination. Clips of Jinhyuk darting between monstrous roots, his blade flashing under the emerald light of the mangrove, began circulating everywhere. He could almost hear the collective gasp of millions watching. Some cheered, others doubted, but one thing was clear: no one could look away. Jinhyuk's lips curved slightly as he watched the reactions roll in. "So this is what all the fuss is about," he muttered, his tone dry but amused. Under the username Kingsman, a man introduced himself as Director Park Hazik, offering Jinhyuk a formal contract. "Join us. Let's make history together." Another user, Black Dragon, followed with an even more audacious promise: "Name your price. I'll match it. Money's no object." Jinhyuk stared at the screen, one brow arching. 1 billion, huh? They really think this is about cash? He leaned back in his creaky chair, the faint glow of his monitor painting his face in blue light. For a brief moment, he was lost in thought, back to the days when life had been a relentless grind. A cheap video camera sat gathering dust on the windowsill. Cold fast food boxes littered the table. Rent overdue. Back then, $1 billion would have been a miracle. He remembered starving for days, saving money just to stream mukbangs instead of eating. But that was before. Before the tower. Before this new world that rewarded skill, not status. Now, as he swirled a half-empty drink in his hand, he whispered, "Even if they offered 10 billion? I'm not sharing what I know." He clenched his fist, smirking. What mattered wasn't wealth, it was monopoly. The power of holding knowledge no one else possessed. Rising from his chair, Jinhyuk opened a map on his phone, the next target already glowing in his mind's eye. A towering structure appeared in his imagination, dark, looming, pulsing faintly with mana. The Tower of Trials had spilled its magic into the world, mutating relics outside into sacred treasures. Behind a glass display case, an ancient sword bathed in light shimmered faintly, like it was breathing. Its edge flickered, vanishing, reappearing, as if the relic itself was rejecting reality. "A replica," Jinhyuk murmured. "But even copies hold power if you know where to look." Soon, he stood before the National People's Museum, its grand steps silent under the night sky. Floating displays of weapons, shields, and scrolls glowed faintly inside, a treasure vault brimming with mana. Jinhyuk frowned. "Of course, I'm not the only one who came for these." The mangrove tree of greed had been rare, appearing in only 7 places across Seoul. But the museum? There was only one. Which meant competition. He imagined silhouettes, skilled players from across the city, veterans and opportunists alike, all drawn to the same place like vultures. Pushing open the museum's door, he felt an eerie stillness. "Quiet," he muttered. "Too quiet." Then his eyes caught it, a charred corpse slumped against a blackened wall. His jaw tightened. Someone had arrived before him. Hands shoved in his pockets, Jinhyuk scanned the area, his expression unreadable. The world's changing, guess people are too. But not fast enough. At the foot of the stairs, faint mana lines pulsed, a sign pointing toward the relics of the Middle and Modern eras. That's where it would be. The relic everyone wanted, the Great East Land Map. It wasn't just a historical artifact. It was alive with mana, humming with data from the Tower of Trials itself, a complete guide to ruins, labyrinths, and hidden treasures. "No one realizes," he whispered, "the real treasures aren't on the map, they're underneath it." Suddenly, a jug crashed to the ground, shattering the silence. Shouts erupted, chaos spilling through the museum. Artifacts exploded in bursts of mana. Blood splattered across the marble floor. Someone screamed, "Freeze!" The young man with black hair, his hand still gripping his opponent's collar, slowly turned. A broad-shouldered man stood across the hall, arms crossed like an executioner. "Anyone moves," he growled, "and you're dead." The boy in the blue shirt scowled back. "Don't talk crap," he said coldly, taking a step forward. The young man with a bandage on his cheek smirked, his voice dripping with mockery. "You think anyone here's scared of that kind of talk?" Blood trickled from the head of his hammer, splattering onto the marble floor. The burly man before him scowled, knuckles cracking as veins bulged beneath his skin. His temper snapped. "You bastards, you really don't get it, do you?" His teeth clenched, eyes glowing a feral red as rage consumed him. With a roar, his muscles bulged, the seams of his shirt tearing apart. The spectators stumbled back as the man's skin darkened into a gray, stone-like texture, his transformation complete. The card belongs to me. His voice now rumbled like an animal's growl. The red gleam in his eyes made even the boldest step away. But an elderly man in a blue vest simply chuckled, closing his eyes. I'm afraid I can't agree to that, son. The transformed man turned toward him, baring his jagged teeth. Are you senile, old man? Disappear before I snap your withered neck. The old man sighed, tapping his cane on the ground as a small flame flickered at his fingertip. So rude. I was hoping for a civil conversation. The fire suddenly flared, brighter, hotter, swirling around his hand. You talk too much, the gray-skinned monster snarled, lunging forward. The old man's eyes opened, cold and sharp. He snapped his fingers. A roaring inferno burst from his palm, swallowing the man whole. The beast screamed tore through the air, echoing across the hall. In seconds, his body was nothing but smoldering flesh, a steaming, blackened heap on the floor. The old man clasped his hands behind his back, turning away with a sigh. A pity, he said softly. A disaster born from an unrestrained tongue. A girl with short hair, Yuri, approached from behind him, her expression unreadable. Should I take care of the rest, Mr. John? John nodded. Please, gather the items. And clean up the mess. Yuri smiled faintly. Of course. You can rely on me. She walked toward a pedestal where a small Anubis statue rested under glass. As she touched it, purple light burst from her eyes, glowing lines spreading around her like veins of lightning. That's enough to handle anyone foolish enough to interfere, she said confidently. The Anubis figurine pulsed with light, golden patterns racing across its surface. A deep growl echoed as a towering, jackal-headed warrior materialized beside her, gripping a long spear. Its eyes gleamed blood-red, its armor forged from shadows. From this point on, Yuri announced, crossing her arms, anyone who moves, will be considered an enemy of Anubis. Her voice carried through the silence. The black-skinned warrior lifted its spear, and several of the remaining players froze in place, terror plastered on their faces. We surrender, one shouted, throwing his weapon aside. Take the card. Just don't kill us. Yuri clapped her hands together gleefully. Good choice. But her smile faltered as the sharp crunch of footsteps echoed behind her. Someone had stepped on broken fragments of pottery. Jinhyuk walked forward casually, hands in his pockets, his expression calm and uninterested. What a mess, he murmured, tilting his head as his eyes drifted over the ruined artifacts. You people don't even have basic respect for antiques. He bent down, brushing the dust off a stack of yellowed scrolls. At least they're still intact. That's something. Then he froze. His name echoed across the hall. Yuri hissed, eyes blazing with fury. You think this is funny? Anubis stomped the ground, cracked spiderwebbing across the marble floor. Dust filled the air as Yuri's grin turned feral. Kill him, she ordered. The jackal warrior lunged forward, spear thrusting toward Jinhyuk's chest. But Jinhyuk didn't move. Not an inch. Just as the weapon was about to strike, he flicked his wrist. Clang! The spearhead snapped clean off and clattered behind him. Yuri's eyes widened. What? The floor behind him was split with a deep crack, as though struck by an invisible blade. Two nearby players gawked, their jaws dropping. He dodged that, one whispered. No, he didn't even move. Jinhyuk smiled faintly. You really have no idea how high my stats are, do you? His gaze shifted to the towering Anubis warrior. So, what now? He asked Yuri. You lost your only weapon. But Yuri only smiled back, a sharp, knowing grin. She slung her backpack off her shoulder and began pulling out more figurines, each radiating a different color of magic. Who said I only had one? She taunted. One by one, replicas of other Egyptian deities hovered in the air, Horus, Batet, Set, all glowing with dark power. The air grew heavy, the museum trembling under the surge of mana. The system message blinked before Jinhyuk's eyes. A replica of the sacred relic incarnation of Anubis has awakened. His eyes widened. 5, at once, he muttered, astonished. Yuri stood surrounded by her summoned creatures, her hair whipping in the wind of their aura. What do you think now, Jinhyuk? She sneered. Still feel like laughing? Jinhyuk chuckled softly. Not bad, he admitted. To maintain 5 relics at your level? That's impressive. He tilted his head, raising his hand lazily. If I had to rate you, somewhere between good and acceptable. Yuri's face twisted in irritation. You're acting cool on purpose, aren't you? I hate guys like you. Jinhyuk's smirk vanished. His eyes hardened. Then maybe I should show you what real power looks like. He pulled out a weathered piece of paper, an ancient talisman drawn with a tiger symbol. Let's make this quick. Tossing it into the air, he pressed his palm forward. The talisman ignited with golden light. You have injected mana into the sacred relic replica, Tiger of the Mountain. The system window flickered again. The ruler of the mountain has descended. A blinding light filled the hall as a massive tiger emerged beside him, fur shimmering like molten gold, eyes burning with ancient might. The ground quaked under its paws. Yuri gasped, stumbling back in disbelief. That's impossible. The Anubis warriors raised their spears, roaring. The tiger growled low, baring its fangs. Jinhyuk placed his hand gently on its head, his voice cold and mocking. How dare a jackal bare its teeth before the ruler of the mountains? He pointed toward Yuri and her summons. Dinner's served. The tiger roared, a deafening, primal sound that rattled the museum walls. It lunged forward, claws slicing through the air. A single swing decapitated one of the Anubis warriors. The others charged, but the beast was too fast, a blur of gold and crimson. The floor cracked beneath its paws, and the air filled with screams and the stench of burnt manna. Blood sprayed. Shattered armor clattered to the ground. Yuri trembled, sweat streaming down her face as she stared at the carnage. What kind of relic user is he? She had heard of countless relic techniques, but nothing like this. The mana radiating from the tiger alone felt like it could tear her skin apart. A white flash filled her vision. Her knees buckled, and she fell, trembling. Tears welled in her eyes. I thought I had the strongest relics, she whispered. But I was wrong. Jinhyuk approached slowly, hands in his pockets, his shadow looming over her. You fought well, he said softly, though his smirk said otherwise. Yuri looked up, pressing a hand to her chest, her voice trembling. What do you want? He stopped right in front of her, eyes glinting. The item, he said simply. She swallowed hard, her heart pounding. Jinhyuk crouched down beside Yuri, his gaze sharp and impatient. Hand over the mask of Tutankhamun, he said coolly. Yuri's brows furrowed, her voice trembling with frustration. That relic's useless here in Korea. What could you possibly want with it? Jinhyuk didn't bother answering. His eyes narrowed, and with a lazy flick of his finger, he gestured behind her. A massive tiger's head materialized from the shadows, its fangs glinting like daggers. Yuri froze, her breath catching. Oh okay. I'll give it up, she stammered. Among the shattered glass and debris, her open backpack lay spilled on the ground. From it, the golden mask of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh slowly floated into the air. A system notification blinked before Jinhyuk's eyes. Replica relic acquired, Mask of Tutankhamun. He caught the mask with one hand, smirking. Second sacred relic, secured without breaking a sweat. Yuri glared, still shaking. Don't tell me you're after T.Ono's card next? Jinhyuk tilted his head, pretending to think. That's none of your concern, he said flatly, though in truth, he'd completely forgotten about the card. He ran a hand along the tiger's fur and added, make sure no one follows us. The beast bared its teeth in silent understanding, growling low. Wait. Yuri gasped, clutching her chest. Her voice trembled as dark energy seeped from the tiger's paws. Jinhyuk glanced over his shoulder, satisfied. Everything was falling into place. Perfect. Preparations complete, he thought, eyes shifting toward the stone staircase that led higher into the tower. The time's come, he muttered. He raised his hand, eyes fixed on the glowing blue chamber ahead. This was where he'd obtained the tower's most powerful skill. Inside a dimly lit vault, numbers and runes glimmered across the walls. A glowing vase floated beneath a glass barrier. Sweat beaded down the forehead of an old man in a blue vest, John. He glanced nervously at Jinhyuk, still struggling to comprehend how the young man had gotten past Yuri. How did you even manage this? He muttered under his breath. Jinhyuk ignored him, inspecting the radiant wall. Looks like a level 1 barrier. John frowned. So you do know what this is. He pressed his palm to the blue surface. Physical force and magic attacks won't work. It's strange. Jinhyuk extended his hand toward it, eyes half closed. His voice dropped. The flow of mana diverges here, blue smoke swirled from his palm, a faint glyph glowing inside the mist. Then, he whispered a single word. Karpo. Without breaking contact, he turned to John. I can break it, but I'll need your help. John's brows knitted. What kind of help? If you keep channeling flame magic into the barrier, it'll weaken enough for me to enter, Jinhyuk explained. Keep it up until I return with the relic. John arched an eyebrow, smirking. So I stay here, burning through my mana, while you go treasure hunting? Jinhyuk gritted his teeth. If I could attack continuously with that kind of firepower, I'd do it myself. But time's short, dawn's coming. You get the card afterward. Fair deal. John considered for a moment, then sighed. Worst case, I get nothing. But, fine. You have my word, Jinhyuk said with a confident smile. I've no interest in making enemies out of strong mages. John nodded reluctantly. Then I'll trust you, boy. Good. Handle the barrier. Flames roared to life in John's hands, crackling like living serpents. "I'll do what I can," he muttered, forcing more mana into the fiery stream. The barrier hissed, lines of light beginning to fracture under the heat. "Now!" Jinhyuk shouted. "Carpo!" He covered his face and dashed forward, straight through the shattering wall of blue light. Inside, the air shimmered with ancient energy. Glass display cases lined the chamber, each glowing faintly. Sweat dripped down John's face on the other side of the barrier. "Hurry," he yelled. But Jinhyuk only waved with a grin. "Relax, old man. I'll handle this my way." He stuffed his hands into his pockets and surveyed the room. Broken cases, ancient relics, scattered scrolls, except for one corner where a faint glow pulsed under shattered glass. There lay a sword engraved with strange runes, Kayen Long. So someone else was here first, Jinhyuk thought. Smart enough to take what they wanted, and even left a protective seal over the chamber. His eyes gleamed. Interesting. He stepped closer, shadows rippling around him. The faint blue glow pulsed through the ruined chamber as Jinhyuk stepped past the shattered glass and debris. He noticed the faint traces of energy shimmering along the edges of the room, a protective barrier. The previous player had been cautious. Jinhyuk clicked his tongue, unimpressed. So he grabbed what he wanted and bailed, huh? No risks, no curiosity. Typical. He walked up to a fractured display case and began counting the remnants scattered around. Then, suddenly, his eyes lit up. A grin tugged at his lips. Well, found you. Resting on a red velvet cushion was a small pile of glittering gold coins. The system's familiar chime echoed in his ears. Chosun Dynasty coins, C-rank relic, acquired. Jinhyuk held one between his fingers, feeling its warmth. Perfect. The last piece I needed. He turned toward the table, where the mask of Tutankhamun and the ceremonial Persian casting mold were already waiting. Narrowing his eyes, he pressed a finger into the right socket of the pharaoh mask. Instantly, golden energy surged from it, intertwining with the aura emanating from the Persian mold. The room trembled as the relics reacted to one another, bright streams of power swirling like molten sunlight. System notification, a reaction has occurred between the two relics. A mischievous spark danced in Jinhyuk's eyes. Then let's add one more to the mix. He pulled the golden thread connecting the Li coins, and with a sharp tug, it snapped. The coins scattered midair, spinning in the energy storm. The power exploded outward, coating the chamber in a radiant golden haze. Jinhyuk raised his arms to shield himself, his hair whipping from the pressure. System alert, reaction detected among 3 relics. Probability of failure, 97.3%. Processing fusion attempt. His smirk deepened. Come on? I don't fail. Then? Success. Fusion achieved. The air cleared, revealing a new relic floating before him, an obsidian black eyeball encased in golden flame. New relic acquired, Eye of Truth, SS rank. Effect, view another status window and discern lies from truth. Usable 3 times per day. SS rank, huh? Jinhyuk muttered, admiring the glow. Guess that's a nice bonus, but not why I came here. More system alerts appeared one after another. Hidden quest completed, combine 3 replica relics below Class B to create an SS class item. New personal ability unlocked, Unification. Blue streams of energy swirled around his legs as he felt a strange resonance inside him, threads of mana connecting his body to something larger. He closed his eyes, envisioning a grid of white squares, each one a skill, a power, a memory waiting to be copied and refined. I'll collect every ability this world holds, and fuse them into something greater. This will be my weapon, to climb to the top of the tower. The air pulsed violently. Personal ability registered, Unification. Effect, copy personal abilities of other players, store them within the world's memory, and merge them into higher tier skills. Level, unmeasurable. Blue light flared from Jinhyuk's eyes. Warning, conditions may alter if the user fails to maintain control during absorption. Outside the barrier, John's voice echoed through the chamber, rough with exhaustion. Hey, Jinhyuk. Hurry up, my mana's running out. Sweat poured down the old man's face as fire coiled from his hands, pressing desperately against the blue wall. Inside, Jinhyuk's expression twisted into a grin. Perfect timing. His system window flickered again, displaying the requirements to copy John's ability. Condition, John conceals his emotions deeply. To copy his skill, the target must be forced to reveal genuine feelings. Jinhyuk's grin widened. So all I have to do, is piss you off. John shouted again, straining against the barrier. How much longer, kid? Without turning, Jinhyuk said casually, you probably won't be using that flame magic again, huh? What? John faltered, brows furrowed. Not much point, Jinhyuk added with a shrug. The barrier's already weakening. Besides, I could have done it without you. John's flames flickered, his teeth grinding. What are you saying? The barrier shimmered, cracking like ice under heat. Jinhyuk extended his hand again, whispering the word. Karpo. The destruction spell pulsed through the air, the wall of blue fire splitting apart as he dashed forward, covering his face. The barrier shattered behind him like glass. John stumbled back, panting, completely drained. He stared in disbelief as the barrier crumbled to dust. So, he didn't need me at all. Inside, Jinhyuk exhaled softly, his mind buzzing. Mana nearly gone, huh, old man? Guess I overdid it. He surveyed the room again. A large map hung on the wall, glowing faintly with runic light. So this is the big reward? A map of the tower? His smirk returned. I already know every corner of this place up to the 10th floor. With a flick of his lighter, he stepped closer. Guess I don't need this. John's muffled voice shouted through the barrier, panic lacing his tone. What are you doing, you fool? Jinhyuk's eyes gleamed mischievously as he held the flame to the map. Just cleaning up. The parchment caught instantly, fire racing across it in brilliant orange light. The fire spread quickly, crackling and roaring as it devoured the poster pinned to the wall. That poster contained a detailed map of the first 10 floors of the tower, an invaluable guide for any player. If it was destroyed, every player's advantage would vanish in an instant. Panic rippled through the room. Why would you do this? Old man shouted furiously as the flames consumed the wall. His trembling hands clenched tightly, veins bulging as he swore, I'll kill you bastard, burn you alive, and grind you into dust. But his outburst only made Jinhyuk's eyes glimmer with mischief. Ding! A notification appeared before him. Condition fulfilled. Above the man's head, a glowing blue book materialized. Another alert flashed across Jinhyuk's screen. Skill successfully copied, fire element, rank B. A shimmering save button appeared before him. Skill saved to the world's memory. Fire element allows control over flames and increases affinity with the fire attribute. Jinhyuk smirked. A fire element, huh? Not bad for my first copy. A fiery orb ignited in his palm, swirling with raw energy. The old man, whose flames he had stolen, growled, You'll regret this, boy. I'll make sure you pay dearly. Still grinning, Jinhyuk asked, Do you even know why I burned that map? The air shimmered. Fire element, level 1 activated. Flames surged up Jinhyuk's arms, dancing wildly. The old man's eyes went wide in disbelief as he watched Jinhyuk wield his own ability, but stronger, sharper, and more precise. Sweat dripped down his temple as realization dawned. This guy, he's no ordinary player. Before he could speak, Jinhyuk cut him off with a sly grin. If you want to survive this tower, old man, you'd better start obeying me. Without waiting for a reply, Jinhyuk turned and descended the stairs. As he walked, he imagined the faces of the other players he had encountered. There were only 4 survivors from the National Central Museum, including himself. Now that the Tower of Trials had become real, everyone was desperate to minimize their risks. Stretching his arms lazily, Jinhyuk muttered, If I want to stay ahead of the pack, I'll need to collect as many personal skills as possible. A translucent blue status window appeared before him, listing his current stats and copied abilities. Satisfied, he crossed his arms, deep in thought. Yeah. I'll take every skill I can get. No matter what it costs. Hovering over the old man, Jinhyuk smirked. Level up with that girl on the first floor. I'll contact you later. The man lowered his head in submission, his brows furrowed with frustration. The girl beside him bit her lip nervously, her hands trembling. To Jinhyuk, they were nothing more than toys, temporary pawns he could use and discard. The skill book in his hand shimmered with a faint blue haze. His path was long and uncertain, but one thing was clear. He needed to gather the most useful abilities before anyone else could. With his hands tucked into his pockets, he mused, I only have one body. I can't monopolize everything, but the best skills? The most broken ones? Yeah, those will be mine. His stomach growled. Ugh, guess that's my limit. Time for some rice soup. He spotted a small cafe and walked in. Inside, the air was tense. The customers were staring wide-eyed at the television screen. The news anchor's voice trembled as she spoke. Breaking news, a fire has erupted at the National Central Museum. Current reports indicate at least 23 dead and over 50 injured. Authorities suspect the attack targeted several ancient relics. The footage cut to scenes of devastation, the museum reduced to rubble. The broadcast continued, similar incidents have occurred across the world, in the United States, Europe, China, and Japan. The Louvre has been destroyed. Jinhyuk leaned back, expression calm. So it's starting worldwide, huh? Guess the players overseas aren't slacking off either. The screen switched to CCTV footage from inside the museum. One frame showed Yuri standing beside Anubis. The next, a man with a blurred face raising his hand. Then, a massive tiger sinking its fangs into an enemy's neck. Gasps filled the cafe. "Is this even real?" one man whispered. "Could a normal person do that?" another asked. "Wait, isn't that the guy from the tower's community video?" Jinhyuk scratched his temple, his eyes narrowing. "Tch, too many people are starting to recognize me. I need to figure out how to hide my identity." On the screen, the anchor continued. "The government is investigating the origins of the mysterious structure known as the Tower of Trials. A special division, the Association of the Awakened, has been established to deal with individuals who possess special abilities." Jinhyuk raised an eyebrow. "Already forming departments, huh? That's faster than I expected." He poured himself a glass of water and thought aloud, "So they've already accepted the tower as part of reality. Impressive. I figured it would take them a few weeks to process it." The broadcast cut to a press conference. A man with a scar on his cheek appeared, introducing himself as Han Sang-jin, the head of the Association of the Awakened. Jinhyuk's expression hardened the moment he saw him. Sang-jin declared, "We are recruiting awakened individuals. Depending on their level, they'll be compensated as government officials, at least grade 7, with an annual salary of 60 million won. Those featured in the tower footage will receive special treatment." Whispers spread across the cafe. 60 million? That's insane. Lucky bastards. What a crazy turn of events, a girl murmured. But Jinhyuk just smirked behind his hand. "So I'm their target, huh? They see me as a threat, and want to buy me off." He imagined Sang-jin's smug expression and thought, "One skilled player is worth more than 100 weaklings, and he knows it. He's trying to lure me with cash and comfort. How predictable." Still, curiosity twinkled in his eyes. If he's the head, maybe he's strong enough to make it worth copying. He chuckled softly. "I'll have to find out for myself." The clock on the cafe wall ticked to exactly 7 p.m. The minute and hour hands overlapped, and suddenly, the world shifted. The Tower of Trials has opened. The sky split apart as a colossal tower rose high above the clouds, stars twinkling around it like diamonds. In an instant, the players were transported to a new area, standing before a vast river, with floating islands hovering in the mist above. "Don't push," someone yelled. "This is insane, it's just like before." Smiling faintly, Jinhyuk looked around. Heh, they all look like rookies. A golden pouch appeared in the air before him. Reward, 100 tower coins granted for first entry. Coins jingled as they fell into his hand. "The game begins," Jinhyuk whispered, a grin spreading across his face. Golden coins showered from the sky, tinkling like rainfall. Notifications began to appear one after another before every player's eyes. "System alert, record and upload your achievements publicly. Reward, 100 coins for every 10,000 views. Commission will vary based on player level." A glowing blue plus sign shimmered above the crowd. Another message followed. "Warning, views from non-tower residents count only once per person. Choose carefully when watching videos." As players read through the notifications, chaos stirred. A man in a robe spread his arms wide before an army of monsters, activating his broadcast. "System alert, live broadcast is available only during boss monster battles. Clearance required for next floor access." Elsewhere, an old warrior in heavy armor clenched his gauntlet fist as the minotaur before him roared loud enough to shake the air. A skull-shaped icon appeared with the word "Warning" flashing in red. "System notice, any falsified views or illegal actions will be penalized." Watching these alerts unfold, Jinhyuk rubbed his chin thoughtfully. So that's how it works. Outside the tower, city residents were glued to their phone screens, captivated. The live streaming system had turned into a bridge between two worlds, the people struggling to climb the tower, and those watching from the safety of reality. Millions tuned in, desperate to witness the tower's conclusion while unintentionally boosting view counts and income for the players. One popular video showed a warrior fighting through ancient pagodas, over 900 people were watching. Another showed a lone hero facing a dragon barehanded, over 1,200 viewers gasping in awe. Gold coins rained endlessly from above these viral streams. This system, a mix of survival and showbiz, was the most ingenious, most profitable feature of the Challenge Tower yet. Players rushed forward, shouting plans to raid the Goblin Cave first. "Let's clear it fast and farm some coins," someone yelled. The crowd surged like a flood. Someone bumped Jinhyuk's shoulder. He pushed them aside without a word, eyes narrowing as he watched the mass of overeager players scatter. "They're all in such a hurry," he muttered, standing still amidst the chaos. Trying to be first, without even knowing what's waiting for them. For Jinhyuk, earning coins wasn't a challenge, he already knew the system inside and out. But uploading videos? Sharing his strategies with the world? Not a chance. Even with rewards on the line, leaking information was a massive risk. One wrong clip, he thought, and my advantage is gone. Hands in his pockets, Jin-hyuk smirked. He already knew exactly what to do next. His road wasn't like the others, it was a different path entirely. He remembered that time long ago, after clearing the 30th floor. Progress had halted, leaving players stuck for months. Back then, he'd scoured the lower floors for hidden secrets, collecting fragments, solving puzzles, digging for answers that others missed. Now, torch in hand, Jin-hyuk pushed deeper into the dark dungeon. The flickering light revealed walls etched with ancient carvings. Every step he took was deliberate, calculated. But suddenly, his expression froze. The torch slipped from his grasp. His hand trembled with anger. Pathetic, he muttered bitterly. The truth struck him like a blade. His old self, the character he had built for years, was weak. Useless. A notification blinked in front of him. Confirm character deletion? Grinding his teeth, Jin-hyuk stared at the glowing text. Years of struggle, sweat, and sleepless nights, all wasted. But doubt was a luxury he could no longer afford. With a deep breath, he confirmed. Blue light enveloped his body, particles rising like stardust. His eyes blazed with determination. This time, he vowed, I'll reach the end. That had been 6 years ago. Now, standing before a colossal gate decorated with skulls and bones, he felt the same surge of anticipation. You have discovered, Level B, Labyrinth of Creep. Known for its extreme complexity and numerous traps. Crossing his arms, Jin-hyuk muttered, the key to breaking through beyond the 30th floor, starts here. He gritted his teeth. Didn't think I'd have to do this again. Touching the massive gate, blue runes flared to life. As it rumbled open, Jin-hyuk stepped inside. Ancient Greek murals stretched across the walls, depicting battles and monsters. At the entrance stood a stone bust of a bull, its cold eyes staring straight ahead. Seeing this familiar sight, Jin-hyuk smiled faintly. So it's the same as before. White butterflies drifted through the air, fluttering beneath the stone ceiling. One descended gracefully and landed on his finger. He chuckled softly. Still here, huh? But his brief calm shattered when he sensed movement behind him. Turning sharply, he saw a group approaching, their eyes gleaming with greed. Who are you? He asked coolly. A girl at the front smiled. We're just looking for a hunting spot. When we saw the labyrinth open, we thought we'd come in before it closed. 10 minutes earlier, the same group had watched as the massive gate opened by Jin-hyuk. A red-haired man among them had pointed. That guy, he knows something. Follow him. One of the squad members frowned. Why did that guy go straight into the labyrinth? He asked, baffled. And how the hell did he open it without a key? The others stared in disbelief. Opening a labyrinth without a key was unheard of. Looking down at the entrance, the girl with sharp eyes suggested, let's follow him. But the blonde man folded his arms, clearly not convinced. We don't even know what kind of labyrinth it is, or how big it might be. Leaning casually against a tree, the girl countered, think, will you? You know what matters most at the start of the Tower of Tests. She glanced upward, explaining, if he opened the labyrinth without a key, it must mean it's on the first floor. That also means its difficulty level isn't too high. Watching Jin-hyuk disappear into the darkness, another squad member nodded thoughtfully. Makes sense, that's probably why it's possible at all. A labyrinth on the first floor would be much easier to unlock. A girl with pink bubblegum puffed out a bubble, smirking. You think that guy's going to share the loot with us? Her ally grinned. No chance. Her eyes gleamed. Then we'll just make sure he never leaves that dungeon. The squad chuckled as she turned toward the labyrinth entrance. We found an open labyrinth first. It's only fair we enter it. The others stepped up behind her, forming ranks. Besides, she continued sweetly, the more people we have, the safer it'll be. Jin-hyuk, watching them from the shadows, smirked. They're relying on numbers, he thought. Trying to outsmart me, huh? His eyes glowed faintly as a notification appeared before him. Eye of Truth activated. The girl stepped forward, confidently pointing to herself. I'm Park Hannah, 22. I made it up to the second floor of the Tower of Tests. A status window appeared. Park Hannah, skills, contact, quick step, weak healing, dot. Jin-hyuk's eyes flickered in interest. Contact, huh? That's interesting. The ability allowed her to form a natural closeness with someone she met for the first time, easing tension and awkwardness. The condition for copying that ability required being alone with the target for 240 hours. Remembering the woman with demonic wings, Jin-hyuk's lips curled. With that skill, I could probably control her. Then, one by one, the others introduced themselves. The red-haired guy behind Hannah spoke first. Jang Chulsik. barely survived the first floor. The girl in a lilac sweatshirt followed. Lee Hai-min. I've also only reached the first floor. Another girl, Jang Mina, blew another bubble. Third floor for me. The blonde crossed his arms. Min-guk. Never played the tower before. And finally, the bespectacled man scratched his head awkwardly. Kwangwoo, first time here too. Jin-hyuk smiled faintly. I'm Jin-hyuk, he said simply. As he turned away, his inner thoughts sharpened. They could stab me in the back any second. No point remembering their names. Suddenly, Park Hannah stepped closer and looped her arm through his. Jin-hyuk, she said sweetly, gazing into his eyes, which floor did you reach? Pressing against him, she activated her contact skill, level 1. Scarlet flower petals shimmered around them. Jin-hyuk looked amused. She's testing her skill on me. Hannah smiled, waiting for the bond to form. But her expression faltered. Huh? Why didn't it work? She whispered, surprised. Hiding her hands behind her back, she tried again, changing the topic. Then, can you tell us what kind of monsters are in this labyrinth? Jin-hyuk agreed easily, narrowing his eyes. Sure. But be ready. Above them, glowing butterflies fluttered as he spoke calmly. This labyrinth changes every hour. Its layout resets each time. The squad gasped. What? The ground trembled violently beneath them. Min-guk looked around, panicking. What's happening now? It's only a first-level labyrinth. Hannah shouted in disbelief. How can this? Her words cut off as giant stone blocks began emerging from the walls. Look out, someone yelled. One block smashed down right in front of her. Hannah dove to the side at the last second, barely avoiding it. Move, idiot! Chulsik shouted, pointing up. If you stay still, you'll die. Hannah looked up, just in time to see a massive slab of stone falling from above. It crashed into the floor, shaking the entire dungeon as dust and debris exploded around them. The squad collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. Dust filled their lungs as the thunderous movement of the stone plates finally came to a halt. Dripping with sweat, Park Hannah braced her hands on her knees and looked back. Where's Jang Mina? She cried, panic flashing across her face. She's gone, Chulsik hissed through gritted teeth, his face pale. What the hell kind of labyrinth is this? A first-floor dungeon shouldn't have anything like this. They're all supposed to be the same, except for the ruins. Jin-hyuk brushed the dust from his shoulders, his expression calm in the chaos. Has any of you ever been inside a changing labyrinth before? He asked quietly. Silence fell. Someone stammered, how would anyone have been to something like that? Hannah bit her lip, frustration clouding her expression. This place is too dangerous. We need to leave. Now. Turning sharply, she called out to Hyman. Use your ability, find us a way out. Hyman's voice trembled. I can't. During the labyrinth's change, my ability shuts off completely. Tears welled in her eyes as she clenched her fists. Hannah's pupils widened in horror. We're trapped, she whispered. There's no emergency exit. From a short distance away, Jin-hyuk watched their panic with cold amusement. They were so confident, he thought. They only entered because they had a map reader on their team. Thought this would be a quick stroll to the supermarket. He lowered his gaze, his eyes glowing faintly. Idiots. And then, he felt it. That shift in the air. The faint, gut-deep pulse that told him something was coming. It's almost time, he murmured. Hannah clenched her teeth in anger and spun toward him. You knew, she shouted, charging forward. You knew about the labyrinth changing and didn't warn us. She jabbed her finger at him, her voice shaking with rage. Because of you, we almost died. Min-guk stepped up beside her, pointing accusingly. You're the only one who knew what was going to happen. Another teammate, Kwangwoo, added, and because of you, Jang Mina's on the other side of the wall. Jin-hyuk sighed, frowning slightly. Did I ever ask you to follow me? Hannah blinked, taken aback. You all came in on your own, he said flatly, eyes burning with quiet irritation. No one dragged you in here. Min-guk gritted his teeth, fury twisting his features. You think that excuses you? We're trapped, and I'm already pissed off enough. With a flash of light, a weapon materialized in his hand. The blonde raised his sword and snarled, I didn't like you the moment I saw you. Before Jin-hyuk could respond, a heavy thud echoed through the chamber. A strange, wet sound followed, then a crash. Min-guk froze, eyes wide. His sword clattered to the ground as a spray of blood burst from his chest. And Min-guk? Hyman screamed, clutching her hands to her mouth. Kwangwoo's voice shook. How did that happen? A massive hoof struck the floor, shaking the ground beneath them. From the shadows, a hulking figure emerged, horns gleaming, muscles rippling, and blood dripping from a jagged axe. The creature let out a deafening roar, shaking the entire labyrinth. The Minotaur, someone whispered in horror. Weapons materialized in trembling hands. A single bloody axe remained embedded in the wall, humming with energy, before vanishing in an instant, leaving behind a deep, cracked scar. Then it reappeared in the creature's grip. The Minotaur raised it high. Hannah's eyes widened in shock. "We're dead." But before the axe could fall, Jinhyuk moved. "Everyone, move," he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. He launched himself forward, his coat flaring behind him as he rushed past the frozen squad. The air rippled from his speed. The leader watched in disbelief, heart hammering. "What is he doing?" Her voice trembled as Jinhyuk closed the distance to the towering beast, his expression calm, eyes burning like fire. The Minotaur's axe came crashing down, splitting the air with a shriek of metal. But Jinhyuk was already moving. He darted forward, closing the distance in a blur. The ground exploded where the axe struck, sending shards of stone flying through the air. Using that burst, Jinhyuk leapt, his body twisting above the monster's horned head. A faint ding echoed in his ears. Dodge successful. He grinned midair. Perfect timing. The sting from his wounded shoulder barely registered. A new notification flickered before him. Hidden stat unlocked, breach. His eyes widened. Breach. The description appeared in glowing blue text. This stat reduces the level gap against stronger foes and increases it when facing weaker ones. Landing lightly on the cracked floor, Jinhyuk muttered under his breath, "So that's how it works." He reached up, grabbed the Minotaur's horn, and pulled himself closer. For every 3 points, the gap shrinks, he mused. The beast roared, its crimson eyes blazing with fury at being touched by a mere human. But Jinhyuk's grin only grew wider. This is what I've been missing." The Minotaur swung its axe again, its movements wild with rage. Jinhyuk slipped past each strike, the wind from the blows tugging at his hair. Breach stat increased by plus 0.05. Another dodge, another notification. Again, and again. His body moved on pure instinct, remembering the pattern of every attack. Every motion carved experience into his muscles like muscle memory reborn. Breach stat increased by plus 0.05. Breach stat increased by plus 0.05. The monster let out a guttural snarl, slamming its axe down with desperate speed. Jinhyuk hopped backward, laughing quietly. "Doesn't matter how strong you are if you can't land a hit." Behind him, the squad stared in disbelief. Minguk's jaw hung open. We tried to trick him?" Park Hannah's hands trembled. "He's insane, taking on a monster like that alone." The Minotaur's rage boiled over. It swung in a wide arc, the axe blade humming through the air. The weapon came so close it brushed against Jinhyuk's neck, drawing a thin line of blood. Another chime. Fatal dodge successful, life-threatening evasion detected. Breach +1. Jinhyuk chuckled under his breath, wiping the blood from his neck with 2 fingers. "1 stat point for a scratch? I'll take it." The Minotaur's attacks grew faster, heavier. Every blow could have crushed him, but he moved like water, slipping between death and survival by inches. Just one mistake, he thought, eyes narrowing, and it's over. He dodged another furious strike, dust swirling around him. "Looks like it's time to end this." At the edge of the room, the terrified squad huddled near the wall. Hyaman clutched her friend's hand. "I want to leave," she whispered. Hannah nodded shakily. "If we follow the wall, we might find an exit." Before they could move, a calm voice spoke behind them. "Where do you think you're going?" They turned to find Jinhyuk standing there, blood-streaked but smiling faintly. He pointed his thumb toward the raging Minotaur. "If you want to get stronger," he said, "then fight." The squad blinked in disbelief. "Dodge its attacks," Jinhyuk continued, eyes gleaming. "You'll gain a hidden stat too." He turned back toward the monster, rolling his shoulders. "But only if you survive long enough to learn." The Minotaur's axe came crashing down again, the impact splitting the air with a thunderous roar. Park Hannah barely managed to leap back in time, her breath catching in terror. Heyman flinched, throwing her hands up as if to block the incoming death blow, while the squad leader, her face pale, screamed as the monstrous weapon tore through the chamber. Stone cracked. Dust exploded through the room. The shockwave rolled over them like a storm, tearing apart everything in its path. When the chaos settled, Hyuk was on the ground, his hand pressed against the floor slick with blood. Nearby, Hannah's tear-streaked face trembled as she looked at the destruction. Through the haze, Jinhyuk gave a crooked smile. "You can't just stand there like a statue," he said calmly, brushing dirt from his sleeve. "Dodge. Keep your distance. That's how you survive." He turned to face the Minotaur, his sharp eyes glinting with mischief. "Right, big guy? Isn't that true?" The creature snorted, its massive frame heaving as it raised its axe once more, but before it could swing, a low rumble echoed through the walls. The labyrinth had begun to shift. Blocks of stone ground against each other, sliding into new positions. A section of wall shot up between Jin Hyuk and the Minotaur, sealing the beast away on the other side. Jin Hyuk chuckled and waved casually. "We'll finish this later," he said, just as the wall slammed shut. The Minotaur roared furiously, steam puffing from its nostrils. It swung its axe down in rage, shaking the entire dungeon. As the tremors faded, Hannah collapsed, gasping for breath. Kik sat beside her, eyes wide. "We could have died," he muttered, voice shaking. "Just like Mingu and Haman." Hannah nodded weakly. "At least it can't follow us now." Then, a soft glow drifted through the air, tiny white butterflies fluttering overhead. "The pollen," Jin Hyuk murmured, watching them. "From those glowing moths earlier. It's what's been attracting the Minotaur." Hannah's eyes widened. "Then why would you touch them on purpose?" He looked at her, genuinely puzzled. "Because I need to raise my stats." He picked up a bloodstained knife and gave it a spin. "Every time the maze shifts, it gives us a window to rest. I might as well make use of it." "Fun," he added with a grin. "That's what it is when that monster finds me." Park Hannah stared at him, speechless. "How long are you planning to keep doing this?" He raised one finger, smirking. 1 month. Then I'm walking out of this maze." The squad fell silent. Kik finally helped Hannah to her feet, muttering, "We'll go our own way. This hell won't last that long anyway." Jin Hyuk tilted his head thoughtfully. "That's probably true," he said. "So, which direction are you all heading?" They didn't answer, just started walking down the corridor. But the deeper they went, the darker it became. No markers. No signs. Just endless stone passages twisting into uncertainty. "Does he even know where the exit is?" someone whispered. Jin Hyuk ran his thumb along the edge of his knife, a playful gleam in his eyes. "Of course I do. I know this maze better than anyone." Hannah frowned. "We don't have much choice, do we?" But before she could finish, Jin Hyuk raised his finger and wagged it teasingly. Nothing's free in this world. Even a bus fare costs something." The blade flashed, stopping a hair's breadth from her face. "Now," he said, voice low and cold. "Hand over all your coins." Then the scene shifted. A man with the shield and a sword roared and lunged forward. Monsters stumbled back in fear, their shouts echoing through the corridor. Then, cut. The scene froze on a video player screen. Comments flooded beneath the paused frame. "This guy's insane. That dodge, so clean. He soloed goblins like a boss." The clip had gone viral, over 1 million views in a day. At a small desk, a young man pushed up his glasses and grinned. "Looks like all the boards are talking about me. My battle with the goblins alone made over 1,000 coins in ad revenue." The swordsman from the video laughed. "It's thanks to our teamwork, really." "Yeah," another said, summoning shimmering blue arrows in his hands. "The edit made it look like you did everything solo. No one even noticed my buffs." The guy with glasses chuckled. "No one ever notices the support." Suddenly, the guy in the blindfold frowned. "Wait, who's this?" Everyone turned toward the screen. A new comment had appeared from a user named Bald Guy. "Fake. Totally scripted." And just like that, the mood in the room shifted. The guy at the computer slammed his hand on the desk, frustration written all over his face. "He's ruining everything," he snapped, glaring at the screen. The one with the bandage across his forehead sighed and rubbed his temple. "Relax, man. Don't get so worked up. This world was always meant to be monopolized by those who discover things first. That's just how it is." The boy with glasses frowned, tapping nervously at his keyboard. "Wait, hold on, something's happening." A new video just dropped on the Walk of Fame feed. Everyone leaned closer to the glowing monitor. The notification popped up, for the first time in the world, successful tenfold enhancement. The preview showed a dazzlingly bright dagger spinning in midair, surrounded by shimmering energy. Within minutes, the view count was exploding, hundreds of thousands, then over 1 million in just 10 minutes. The young man with glasses gawked at the screen. "This is absurd," he muttered, scrolling through the endless stream of praise and excitement in the comments. Their squad's video, once proudly sitting at the top of the rankings, was already plummeting down the charts. "Why's it tanking so fast?" asked the guy in the blindfold, his brows furrowing. "Because of that," the one with glasses said bitterly, pointing at the shining thumbnail. Meanwhile, far away inside the labyrinth, Jin Hyuk crossed his arms and stared at the floating system message in front of him. His expression was calm, detached. "Let them fuss over rankings," he murmured. Then, with a lazy wave of his hand, he said to his squad, "Go pick some moss, set up a place to sleep, and find logs for a fire." Kik grumbled, clearly irritated, but still obeyed. As he turned to leave, he shot a glare at Jin Hyuk, who was smirking with his usual mischievous calm. Jin Hyuk ignored him. He opened his status window, his eyes scanning the holographic menu until he selected exchange. A cheerful message blinked in front of him. Welcome to the exchange. Jin Hyuk rubbed his chin, thinking. Now, what do I need this time? In the air, holographic images appeared one by one. A deck of enchanted tarot cards, 70 coins. A fragment of an old bronze key, 80 coins. A piece of a wooden cartwheel, 300 coins. And a lotto booster scroll, 10 coins. Each one looked like worthless junk. But Jin Hyuk smiled slyly. He reached forward and confirmed the purchases. Thank you for your purchase, appeared with a chime. To anyone else, those items were meaningless trash, but Jin Hyuk knew exactly what they could do. Let's see, he said softly, placing his hand above the glowing blue energy that connected them all. Let's try something fun. A surge of magic coursed through the air. The blue energy twisted and whirled around the items, binding them together in a brilliant flash. Item combination successful. Before him, a magnificent artifact emerged, the Wheel of Fortune, its rim glowing with ancient runes and an image of the goddess of luck etched in its center. Artifact effect, temporarily increases luck to its maximum value for 10 minutes. Incomplete, limited range of use. The golden wheel hovered in the air, spinning slowly as Jin Hyuk studied it with an amused grin. If you don't understand how something works, you'll never know its limit, he whispered, summoning a knife into his hand. And luck, it's the kind of power that can raise a man to heaven, or throw him straight to hell. He grasped the wheel, and light exploded around him. Luck has reached its maximum value. Sealed scrolls materialized from above, falling like raindrops of light. He checked his inventory, 10 enhancement lotto scrolls. Normally, those scrolls were a joke, barely a 1% chance of success. But now, with his luck maxed out, 100% success rate. Jin Hyuk smirked. Perfect. He lifted his dagger toward the spinning wheel of fortune and began the enhancement. One by one, the scrolls disintegrated in brilliant flashes, notifications popping up faster than he could read. Enhancement success. Enhancement success. Enhancement success. The dagger in his hand gleamed with radiant energy, its edge sparking like lightning. Item, old dagger plus 10 acquired. Achievement unlocked, first player in Korea to create a level 10 item. Reward, 5,000 coins. Achievement will be displayed on the Hall of Fame for 24 hours starting tomorrow. Jin Hyuk swung the weapon a few times, feeling its perfect balance, and rested it casually on his shoulder. Finally, he muttered. Something truly worth having. Day 10 in the Labyrinth of Hell. Kik and Park Hana sat beside a small fire, their knees pulled to their chests. The flames crackled weakly over a few damp branches. Nearby lay a rough bed of moss, hardly comfortable, but better than the cold floor. There was almost no food left. Only mushrooms and moss. Hana grimaced as Kik bit into a spotted fly agaric, chewing miserably. You're seriously eating that? She asked, turning her face away in disgust. He shrugged. Better than starving. Jin Hyuk lay on his back nearby, arms behind his head, eyes half open, as if none of this bothered him. Hana's mind replayed the past few days, their desperate escapes, the shifting walls, and the minotaur that hunted them at the same hour every day. She remembered the way Jin Hyuk had stood there, calm and unflinching, even as the monster tore through the maze. He made it all look effortless. We'll die if this keeps up, she whispered, hugging her knees tighter. Kik nodded grimly. That demon will use us and toss us aside when he's done. As they spoke, glowing text appeared before their eyes, anonymous comments from spectators watching their progress. Most were filled with useless advice or idle gossip. Hana frowned, scanning the comments. Has anyone found out anything about him? She asked in a low voice. The responses came one by one. No info found. His YouTube, blog, everything's private. He doesn't even have a broadcast channel. Hana's shoulders slumped. So the people supporting us outside, they're completely useless. She turned to Kik, frowning. Did they report this to the Elder? What's the Raven Guild saying? The next reply appeared in the air. No updates yet. The guild said it might take 3 weeks to locate your labyrinth. 3 weeks, Hana whispered, clutching her face in despair. That's way too long. Across the fire, Kik lazily tossed the last piece of mushroom into his mouth, chewing. Kik stared at the glowing message board in front of him, his face twisted with frustration. So, what's the word from the guild? He asked quietly. His companion sighed. Nothing. They still haven't found our location. Park Hana glanced toward Jin Hyuk, who was lying on his side near the fire, his back turned to them. The dim orange glow flickered across his calm face, he looked utterly relaxed, as if he didn't have a care in the world. That sight made something boil inside her. After a long silence, she leaned closer to Kik. If we kill him, and hold out just a little longer until the elder arrives, we can survive. We can get out of this hell. Her voice trembled at first, but by the end, her words were sharp as a blade. Kick frowned, eyes darting to the sleeping figure. And how exactly do you plan to kill that? Park Hannah clenched her fists. That's what we need to figure out. Kick reached down and picked up a jagged stone from the floor, gripping it tightly. The easiest way is to do it while he's asleep, he whispered. One good hit to the skull, no one survives that. He raised his hand, knuckles white around the rock. But before he could swing, Hannah grabbed his arm. Stop, she hissed. Kick turned to her, eyes wide with confusion. What the hell are you doing? Her expression was grim. You don't understand. That man, his reaction speed isn't human. Even if he's asleep, he'll sense it. The moment you move, he'll kill you. Jin Hyuk remained perfectly still, his breathing calm, his back to them, yet the thought that he might be awake made their hearts race. Park Hannah slowly released Kick's arm and looked down, her lips trembling. We're powerless against him. Even a sneak attack could end with both of us dead. Kick threw her a look of disbelief. So what, we just keep suffering like this? Let him use us until we die? Hannah didn't answer right away. Instead, she began rummaging through her small satchel, her fingers trembling as she searched. Wait, she muttered. I might have something. Her eyes lit up when she finally found it. From the bottom of the bag, she pulled out a small glass vial containing a dark green liquid, and inside it floated a venomous sting, shimmering faintly. This, she said softly, is from a giant immature pumpkin wasp. A single drop of its venom can kill 100 trolls. She smiled faintly, though her eyes were cold. We'll use it in a way he can't resist. At that very moment, Jin Hyuk opened his eyes slowly. He sat up without a sound, holding a small wooden plank topped with fried moss and mushrooms. His expression was unreadable as he poked at the meal with a pair of improvised chopsticks made from mouse bones. The atmosphere was so tense it felt surreal, like a scene from a twisted survival show. Hannah forced a shaky laugh. We just need to catch a few more mice or moths. Then we'll finally have something edible besides mushrooms. From across the camp, Jin Hyuk's voice broke the silence. Pass me some more mushrooms, and water. Both Hannah and Kick froze. Then, without a word, Kick obeyed, scooping a few charred mushrooms onto Jin Hyuk's plate and handing him a small container of water. Still plenty left, Kick muttered bitterly, glaring at the disgusting meal. Hannah shot him a sharp look, silently calling him weak for hesitating. Jin Hyuk lifted a piece of mushroom to his lips and took a bite. The live chat that floated above their heads exploded with messages from anonymous viewers. He ate it. He really ate it. No way, did they just poison him? Holy crap, this is insane. Park Hannah smiled quietly to herself, hiding her excitement behind a calm expression. Beside her, Kick watched anxiously, waiting for the poison to take effect. A few moments later, it did. The plate of mushrooms clattered to the floor. Kick's mouth opened in shock as a black liquid poured out, splattering on the ground. His body convulsed violently, veins bulging under his skin. Kick! Hannah cried, stumbling to her feet. What's happening? Jin Hyuk calmly set his plate aside and looked up at her, his gaze sharp and cold. You really thought I'd eat food from your hands without checking it first? Her breath caught. Kick fell to the floor, twitching, his skin darkening by the second. Jin Hyuk stood up, brushing dirt from his pants. I swapped the plates when you weren't looking. The live chat erupted again. Wait, he knew. He switched it. This guy's terrifying. Oh my god, she killed her own ally. Jin Hyuk summoned a translucent blue window in front of him, his tone almost amused. You know, he said casually, secretly broadcasting a live feed from inside the labyrinth is illegal. Park Hannah's face went pale. What evidence do you have? She shouted, trembling. He tilted his head, smirking. Evidence? The spectators watching through the illegal feed began to panic as they saw what was happening. Jin Hyuk glanced at the system window hovering beside him. Lines of text scrolled across it. Broadcast detected, unauthorized live transmission during non-boss event. Violation of system rules confirmed. Offenders will be penalized. Would you like to file a formal report of illegal activity? He pressed his finger against the floating button. Park Hannah's lips quivered, tears welling up in her eyes. Jin Hyuk gave her a chilling smile. Next time you decide to go live, he leaned closer, eyes gleaming, you should practice your facial expressions. Her body froze, terror washing over her as the system's judgment began to fall. The fire flickered between them, casting shadows that danced like ghosts across the stone walls, while Jin Hyuk stood there, calm, composed, and utterly merciless. Jin Hyuk's lips curved into a cruel grin as he added, your disappointment's showing, you know. With a sharp press of his finger, the confirmation button flashed beneath his hand. Instantly, a bright, warning eye notification exploded into view, surrounding the trembling Park Hannah in glowing red letters. The application has been successfully submitted, the system announced coldly. All anonymous user identities have been erased. Park Hannah froze, pressing her hands to her chest as her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Behind her, the large projection of the live broadcast began to flicker and fade away. She spun around, eyes wide, watching as the chat filled with confusion. What's going on? Why can't I see anything? Did the stream just cut? One by one, their connection snapped. Each anonymous viewer vanished, their usernames deleted in an instant. The screen blipped again, showing a new message. All violators will be banned from watching broadcasts for 1 month. Repeat offenders will face permanent deletion. The number of spectators dropped to 0. Park Hannah stared at the empty void in disbelief. How is that possible? She whispered. Then another chilling message appeared. Player's fine has been replaced by a merciless fate. Her friend Six's body began to twist grotesquely, melting into a pool of black sludge before her horrified eyes. The sound of bubbling flesh filled the air. Park Hannah turned sharply, something massive was moving down the corridor. Out from the shadows emerged a minotaur, its massive frame illuminated by the flickering firelight. A wicked axe glinted in its hands. It let out an ear-splitting roar that rattled the walls. The beast charged forward, its heavy hooves cracking the stone beneath it. Panicking, Park Hannah dove behind Jinhyuk. Are you going to fight this time? She stammered, slapping his back. Tell me where to hide. Jinhyuk slowly turned his head toward her, expression unreadable. You've got some nerve, he said coldly. Trying to poison me 1 second, begging for help the next. Her voice trembled. Why you always tell us what to do, don't you? Please, she clutched her chest desperately. A soft ding echoed. Conditions to copy the target's skill have been met. Jinhyuk's eyes flickered with satisfaction. A golden skill book materialized above his head, pages glowing with divine light. I don't need you anymore, he said calmly, his gaze cutting through her like a blade. Park Hannah glared, voice trembling with spite. You'll regret this. My brother's in the Raven Guild, you think he'll let you live after this? The ground quaked violently before she could say another word. The Minotaur's colossal axe slammed into the floor, splintering stone and sending shards flying. Park Hannah shrieked and jumped back. Jinhyuk shot upward, launching himself high into the air, his figure slicing through the smoke. Watch carefully, he called down. See the difference between me and your pathetic guild. He twisted midair, his dagger gleaming with red energy. Then, he dropped. The blade sliced across the back of the Minotaur's skull, leaving a shallow, burning cut. The monster bellowed, swinging its massive fist in retaliation. The impact shattered the wall beside him, but Jinhyuk had already landed lightly on a crumbling stone tile. He smirked, thinking fast. That worked. Breach skill confirmed. But the ground beneath him cracked again under the force of the Minotaur's steps. Can't just brute force this thing. The beast's axe whooshed past his ear, and Jinhyuk dove, sliding low across the stone floor. Sparks flew from his boots. Same setup as last time. If I repeat it, I can win. The air shimmered. Fire element, level 1 activated. Flames burst forth, engulfing the corridor in searing heat. The Minotaur roared, raising its arms to block the inferno, but Jinhyuk was already moving. Breaking through the blaze, he lunged forward and slashed at its leg. The Minotaur's knee buckled, it crashed down, one leg sinking into shattered stone. Jinhyuk stood behind it, smirking. Easy now. Don't thrash too much, he taunted, gripping his knife tighter. You'll only make the meat tougher. The Minotaur growled, steam snorting from its nostrils. Its body trembled violently. Then, its eyes blazed green. The Guardian of the Labyrinth has activated Frenzy, level 10. The Minotaur's muscles swelled monstrously, veins glowing with radiant emerald energy. The air itself trembled under the weight of its power. Its horns shone with light, its axe pulsing with a terrifying green aura. Park Hannah stumbled back, horror painted on her face. Is it even possible to beat something like that? She whispered. Jinhyuk stood firm, knife poised before him, eyes calm and razor-sharp. The Minotaur roared, shaking the entire corridor. The Minotaur's eyes blazed with crimson fury, twin fires burning with feral rage. The creature's mane bristled, muscles swelling grotesquely as veins glowed red beneath its skin. Above its head, a menacing icon flickered into existence, Frenzy, level 10 activated. Power surged through the beast, shaking the ground. Its stats skyrocketed, strength, attack speed, and movement speed all increased by 30%. But that wasn't all. The most terrifying part of the transformation was the secondary effect, enhanced intelligence. The monster could now speak. Opening its jagged maw, the Minotaur growled in a guttural yet articulate voice, "Human. I'll tear you apart piece by piece." It lifted its massive axe, the air around it vibrating with pressure. "I'll crush your bones to dust, so you'll never dare step foot here again." Jinhyuk's expression didn't waver. His knife shimmered with an ominous purple haze as mana pulsed around it. His mana efficiency's gotten way better than before, he muttered, rolling his shoulders. Raising the weapon in front of him, he grinned, eyes gleaming with excitement. "Come on then, show me what you've got." With a roar that shook the dungeon walls, the Minotaur lunged. Its colossal axe swung downward, the impact strong enough to split stone. But Jinhyuk raised his blade just in time, the weapons clashed, sending a shockwave through the air. The axe slid off his knife and slammed into the ground with an echoing boom. The monster swung again, and again, but each strike met with Jinhyuk's precise parry. Sparks flew, the metallic screech ringing through the chamber. From a distance, Park Hannah watched in disbelief. Her mouth hung open, eyes wide with shock. The man who moments ago looked exhausted was now standing firm, his movements sharp and calculated. "He stopped dodging," she whispered, trembling. "He's taking those blows head on." The Minotaur's relentless barrage continued, but Jinhyuk blocked every strike with surgical precision. The dungeon floor cracked beneath their feet, shockwaves rumbling outward. "This is insane," Hannah muttered, a bead of sweat trickling down her cheek. "Even a full guild couldn't beat a boss in level 10 frenzy, he's crazy." Steel clashed again, clang. The blades locked. Jinhyuk pushed back, a smirk curling on his lips even as their weapons trembled. How can he smile in a situation like this? Hannah breathed, clutching her chest. Jinhyuk's eyes darkened for a moment. His mind drifted, not away from the fight, but deep into his own memories. "I've always been trapped," he thought bitterly. "In this world, in that game, powerless." A flood of past defeats flashed through his head, countless deaths, countless respawns. Each one had carved its mark into him. "Player has died. Breach stat plus 57. Those words echoed from the countless times he'd perished in-game. Every fall, every fight, every ounce of struggle had built up his hidden strength. He clenched his fist tightly. Not this time. Behind him, a massive spectral tiger roared to life, its transparent form bursting forth like a spirit responding to his will. Mana crackled through the air. "Let's see if this world still wants to play with me," Jinhyuk muttered, grinning. The Minotaur swung again, and Jinhyuk deflected it, his movements faster now, smoother. Breach stat plus 1. Notifications kept popping up with each exchange. Sparks and stone fragments filled the air as the axe slammed down again and again, but Jinhyuk was already anticipating every motion. The monster raised a brow, momentarily confused. How was this human keeping up? Jinhyuk tightened his grip, then darted forward. His knife glowed fiercely as he unleashed a flurry of lightning-fast slashes. The Minotaur's thick hide split in multiple places, crimson streaks marking each strike. Park Hannah could barely follow the movements, just flashes of purple light and deafening impacts. Jinhyuk's body blurred as he weaved between the Minotaur's strikes. The creature reeled, bellowing in fury. "You think your little tricks can hurt me?" the beast roared, raising its fist. "You haven't even scratched me." The ground trembled as it swung its massive arm. A blinding flash filled the chamber, a shockwave blasted through, shaking the air. Jinhyuk was thrown back, landing hard on the stone floor. Dust and smoke swirled around him. When it cleared, the Minotaur's massive fist hovered just inches from his face. Then, frenzy time expired. Jinhyuk tilted his head, wiping dust from his cheek. 5 minutes, he said calmly. "You're done." The Minotaur's muscles twitched violently. Its entire body began to steam, cracks of light spreading across its skin. With a guttural roar of rage, its strength drained away, flames consuming its frame. Penalty activated, user enters suspended animation for 24 hours. The beast's colossal body collapsed with a deafening thud, slamming into the floor as a massive crater formed beneath it. Jinhyuk exhaled slowly, glancing at his stat window. Breach stat, 50. 50 points, enough to close the gap of 19 levels, he murmured, a satisfied grin creeping across his face. "Give me a few more days, and I'll hit 100. From behind a broken stone pillar, Park Hannah peeked out, trembling. Is it over?" "The rage is," Jinhyuk replied, sheathing his knife. "But the monster's only gone temporarily. Once the labyrinth resets, it'll respawn." Her eyes widened in horror. "Then, it'll come back?" "Exactly." Jinhyuk lifted his hand, 2 fingers raised. "We've got 20 days before that happens." 20 days later. The dungeon's floor shattered beneath a resounding step. The Minotaur roared back to life, its axe gleaming once more as it swung with monstrous force. Jinhyuk easily sidestepped the slash, his movements sharper than ever. Breach stat plus 1. Total breach, 100. Notifications flooded his vision as he flipped through the air, his aura flaring violently. The Minotaur lunged again, fangs bared and eyes blazing red. And Jinhyuk, grinning like a predator, met its charge head-on. Jinhyuk's fist shot upward like a cannon, smashing squarely into the Minotaur's jaw. The impact cracked through the air, and the towering beast stumbled backward with a pained grunt. Each point he had earned strengthened him, yet at that moment, it wasn't his stats that crushed the monster, it was his mood. He exhaled slowly, his knuckles throbbing. "Guess it's all about how I'm feeling today," he muttered, pinning the Minotaur's horn under his boot. The bull-headed guardian let out a weak snarl, its massive form trembling. Jinhyuk looked down from above, shadows crawling over his face as he whispered, "Looks like it's time for us to part ways." Jinhyuk's eyes dimmed as he turned his gaze toward Park Hannah, standing frozen at the edge of the chamber. Jinhyuk smiled faintly, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. "Now then," he said lightly, "I need to figure out how to deal with you." Park Hannah flinched, pressing a hand to her chest. "What do you mean, deal with me?" "From now on," Jinhyuk replied casually, "I'm forming a company. A company for veterans." His smirk widened. "And I'm recruiting interns." Her eyes went wide. Interns?" He tilted his head. "What? Not interested?" "Interested?" she blurted out, almost shouting. "Of course I am. I've always wanted to join something like that." Jinhyuk chuckled softly. "Good answer." He stepped closer, eyes glinting mischievously. "Then tell me, what use would you be to my company?" Straightening up, Park Hannah placed a trembling hand over her heart. "My personal contact ability. It would be useful for communication and management." Jinhyuk raised an eyebrow. "You mean the ability I've already mastered?" "And no. I mean," she stammered, voice cracking. "I'll never betray you. You can trust me." He leaned forward slightly, casting a shadow over her. "Is that so?" His voice was calm, almost too calm. "Then what else do you have to offer?" Hovering over her, he smiled faintly, cold and sharp. "You're a disappointment." Park Hannah's eyes widened, panic setting in. Wait. Please." She dropped to her knees, tears spilling down her face. "Give me more time." Jinhyuk tilted his head as though considering it, then smiled sweetly. "Unfortunately," he said, "we don't accept interns that join halfway through." Her breath hitched, fear tightening her chest. "I'll give you Braham's ring," she cried suddenly, grabbing his leg. "Just spare me." His gaze sharpened. "Braham's ring? My brother, he made a deal with the Chinese guild," she stammered. "He gave Jinhang to Koro as payment. Please. I can get you the ring." Jinhyuk's expression darkened with interest. "So that's how the Black Crow Guild got their hands on it." He crouched down, his eyes reflecting the crimson gleam of the gem she mentioned. The image of the ring flashed before him, a golden band crowned with a blood-red jewel. One of the rarest treasures on the first floor. Its effects, increased movement speed, enhanced magic resistance, and the power to suppress a monster's mana flow. Jinhyuk's lips curled into a grin. Thanks to his eye of truth, he could see that she wasn't lying. Notifications flickered before him, confirming the item's authenticity. He clapped her trembling shoulder. "Congratulations," he said cheerfully. "You're officially an intern in the company of old men." What? Park Hannah blinked in confusion. Holding up 3 fingers, Jinhyuk continued matter-of-factly. "Number 1, interns don't get paid. Number 2, you'll come when you're called, no matter when or where. Number 3, he grinned. You'll sign the contract." Her heart dropped. Contract? The air shimmered as a new notification appeared before him. World memory reading initiated. Skill fusion, contact plus fire element in progress. Blue energy burst from his hands, 2 icons merging into one. The air crackled. "It might get a little hot," Jinhyuk warned playfully. A blinding flash filled the chamber. New skill acquired, Soul Brand. Park Hannah backed away, terrified. Is this the contract?" Jinhyuk lifted his hand, mana swirling around his palm like fire. "You didn't think you'd just sign a paper, did you?" "No. Wait, please," she screamed as his hand came down, glowing with fierce blue flames. Her cry echoed through the labyrinth as the Soul Brand seared into her skin. The mark burned faintly on her cheek, pulsing like a living ember. Soul Brand successfully engraved. Target bound to obey all commands from the skill's owner. Violation will result in automatic body combustion. Jinhyuk smiled, lowering his hand. "Welcome," he said smoothly, "to the Black Enterprise." Her scream faded into silence, replaced by the sound of heavy stone grinding. The labyrinth gates began to open. System notice, first floor cleared for the first time. Blinding light poured in. Park Hannah fell onto soft grass, gasping for air. Tears streaked her face as she laughed in disbelief. "I survived." Another message appeared before her eyes. First floor completion bonus, 5,000 coins, players added to the honor list for 24 hours. 5,000, she whispered, eyes wide. After all that hell, that's it? Hey, in turn, Jinhyuk's voice called behind her. She turned. He extended a hand. Hand it over. What? Your reward. Before she could protest, glowing coins streamed from her inventory into his. His total balance now exceeded 10,000 coins. Not bad, he mused. I doubt anyone else has this much yet. Then he pointed at her, his voice calm but cold. And one more thing, bring me Braham's ring within 3 days. 3 days, she yelped. That's too soon. Blue energy flared in his palm. Then too. A burning pain seared across her cheek in the shape of a human hand. Park Hannah screamed, clutching her face. Oh okay. I'll do it. 2 days. Jinhyuk nodded approvingly. Good in turn. The screen of the outside world shifted to a live news broadcast. A massive screen atop a skyscraper displayed a man in a dark suit, his tone urgent. In a week, the announcer declared, Korea's strongest guild, Dangun, plans to conquer the boss of the 3rd floor. Images of various guild emblems filled the display, the elite of the nation preparing for the next stage of the tower. Among them, Dangun's emblem burned brightest, its dragon insignia representing Korea's pride on the international stage. As the broadcast continued, people walked through the crowded streets below, their eyes locked on the screen, unaware that, somewhere deep beneath the tower's layers, Jinhyuk had just rewritten the rules of survival. The news anchor straightened his tie and turned to the camera, his voice sharp with urgency. Any statements from the Chinese side regarding the tower conquest? The man beside him furrowed his brows, irritation flickering across his face. No, he said firmly. It's better to focus on conquering the tower ourselves than to wait for help from another country. The Dangun Guild has proven capable, they've managed fine without foreign support. Watching from his seat, Jinhyuk leaned back, eyes narrowing at the screen. His fingers tapped lightly against the table as he muttered under his breath, let's see how long that confidence lasts. The image of the tower's looming structure flashed through his mind, massive, endless, and full of horrors. He could already guess why they were in such a hurry. They wanted to seize as many resources as possible before others could. Greed always came before reason. He brought up a digital map of the tower, glowing faintly on his screen. No need to rush, he murmured. Not to the 2nd floor. Not even the 3rd. Each floor allowed only 90 days of chaos. And those who failed wouldn't get a second chance. Suddenly, a message appeared, transfer to the next floor commencing. The scene around him flickered, and in the next moment, monsters emerged from the shadows, dozens of them, their growls echoing through the air. Jinhyuk clenched his jaw. There's no way that guild will survive this floor, he muttered. The difficulty keeps increasing. Humanity won't get another shot. Later, the light from his small apartment window glowed faintly against the darkness outside. Empty bottles and garbage bags were stacked beside the door, a silent reminder of his life before the tower became real. Sitting down with his phone, Jinhyuk opened his contacts. I'll start by gathering intel, he said, scrolling through the list. No rumors, just solid information. He tapped open a tab titled Community, Challenge Tower. A feed of messages and forums popped up, buzzing with activity. It had a user search bar, letting him find old players. A nostalgic smile tugged at his lips. A cafe scene flickered into view, the scent of roasted coffee beans filling the air. Across from him sat a young man with spiky blonde hair who waved enthusiastically. Yo! I'm Taemin, he said with a grin. Nickname's Bald Head. His avatar on the site held a Molotov cocktail, wearing a ragged military jacket. Beside him, a girl with black hair thumped her fist against her chest. Name's Yanawa. My nickname's Fire Fist. Her avatar was even more ridiculous, a cartoonish inflatable ring around her waist and a pair of oversized boxing gloves. Jinhyuk blinked. You've got to be kidding me, he whispered, staring between them. These two looked nothing like the characters he'd teamed up with 2 years ago. For a brief moment, he pictured their old avatars, warriors, assassins, and mages standing together in perfect formation. Yeah, this isn't quite the glorious reunion I had in mind. His system chimed. Skill activated, Eye of Truth. Blue light flickered in his vision. Instantly, Taemin's status window appeared before him, lines of data scrolling down, ability, Machine King. A high-tier magic skill, ideal for massive battles and siege situations. No wonder he'd always been their heavy hitter. He glanced toward Yanawa as she took a sip from her drink, her status window popping up next. Skill, Tanda Master, a technique focused on close-range combat and relentless offense. No wonder they always fought side by side, Jinhyuk thought, watching them bicker playfully. Their levels matched perfectly, they'd been grinding together for a long time. He smiled faintly. Some things never change. Then another message blinked in front of him. Copy ability unavailable, all party members must reach the 20th floor together. Jinhyuk sighed, rubbing his temples. Figures. Of course there's a catch. Teen leaned back and pointed at him. Alright, your turn, man. Let's hear it. Snapped from his thoughts, Jinhyuk blinked. Ah, right. He cleared his throat awkwardly. Name's Jinhyuk. Then, realizing how plain that sounded, he added quickly, nickname's Captain Boar. Taemin froze mid-sip, staring at him. Yanga choked on her drink, coughing as she burst into laughter. Jinhyuk covered his mouth, embarrassed. Why did I ever make that name 11 years ago? Trying to play it off, he sat down and crossed his arms. Anyway, I'm 27 now. I stream on Paprika TV. Taemin's mouth fell open in disbelief. Taemin's froze halfway to his mouth, his eyes wide. Wait, you're a streamer? He blurted, disbelief mixing with excitement. No way. I've seen your channel on Paprika before, I used to watch your streams sometimes. Jinhyuk chuckled, swirling the straw in his drink. Yeah, that's me. But I've already stopped streaming. Taemin waved his hand casually. Hey, that's fine. We've been gaming together for years. Let's just chill like old times. Sitting beside him, Yanawa nodded in agreement, a faint smile on her face. Yeah, it's been too long. Jinhyuk leaned back, watching them. They were so open. Friendly. It was strange, almost uncomfortable. His mind wandered to faces from the past. The smiling Jonggu who had used him without a second thought. The fiery glare of Park Hannah right before she betrayed him. Memories of deceit flickered like ghosts in his mind. But now, surrounded by his old party members, two people who weren't hiding knives behind their smiles, he felt something unusual. Peace. A holographic projection of the earth hovered above their cafe table, surrounded by empty coffee cups and glowing interface screens. Taemin was busy scrolling through tower reports, while Yanawa leaned in, explaining how the world had changed during the time Jinhyuk was trapped in the labyrinth. He learned everything, the rise of powerful guilds across the world, the booming streaming industry built around tower content, and even the bizarre rumors of miners in black robes who ran human factories underground. When Jinhyuk saw their masked faces in a short clip, his expression darkened. Taemin raised his eyebrows. Wait, don't tell me, you've been gone all month? Jinhyuk nodded. Yeah. Time runs differently inside. Then you probably missed the new test system, Yanawa added, spooning ice cream into her mouth. Jinhyuk blinked. Test system? Moments later, their taxi crawled through the traffic-choked highway, the skyline of Seoul shimmering ahead. Taemin twisted around from the front seat. When the tower first appeared, a flood of players rushed in. But from the second floor onward, the death rate skyrocketed. The association had to step in, they created a test system. Only players who pass the evaluation can move to the next floor. Yanawa lifted her wrist, showing a faint barcode etched into her skin. Everyone gets a verification code now. You can't advance without it. Jinhyuk's gaze darkened. The image of Sang Jin, the head of the association, flickered in his mind. That man was cunning, always smiling, always scheming. Gathering powerful players under the guise of safety? Jinhyuk smirked faintly. So that's your plan, huh? Collect the strongest for yourself. He leaned his head against the window, watching the glowing association emblem appear on a massive skyscraper ahead. I'll use your little system for my own good, Sang Jin. When the taxi stopped at the building entrance, crowds were already gathering. Giant screens displayed the association's logo, a shining sword encircled by wings. Since its formation, the new rule was simple. Fail the test, lose your chance to climb. Players graded below F were branded as failed and barred from entering the second floor. At the testing plaza, the atmosphere buzzed with tension. Hope, fear, and greed swirled like storm clouds. One man clenched his fists, whispering a desperate prayer to get a decent rank. A trembling girl bit her lip, praying for at least an E rank so she wouldn't be left behind. Nearby, reporters adjusted their cameras, preparing to cover the next prodigy to emerge, maybe another A rank hero. Don't miss this one, a cameraman hissed as the lens focused on the red carpet. Two figures appeared, Park Hannah and Park Hajin of the Black Crow Guild. Flashbulbs exploded as the crowd cheered. Behind them strode Kim Kite, the father of wrestling and one of the guild's leading figures. His expression was stern, cutting through the noise. What's with this crowd? He muttered. Hajin turned to him, polite but firm. They're all chasing fame and fortune. The tower made everyone desperate. Kite groaned. No time for nonsense. Make way. The press is waiting. His eyes gleamed. I came for the Black Crow's young stars. Don't disappoint me. Park Hannah straightened under the pressure. "We'll do our best, sir." Her brother nodded confidently beside her. Security guards began clearing a path, pushing the crowd back as reporters shouted questions. Among the mass of hopefuls stood Jinhyuk, his hands tucked casually into his pockets, Taemin and Yanawa beside him. "Hey, you! Move," one guard barked, pointing straight at him. Jinhyuk lifted a brow. "Why should I? I've got my number. I'm waiting in line like everyone else." Before the guard could reply, Park Hajin stepped forward, irritation twisting his face. "You're holding up the line," he said coldly. "Don't make a mistake you'll regret." Someone in the crowd gasped. "He's talking back to Park Hajin himself." Jinhyuk's expression didn't change. Inside, the eye of truth flickered to life, his pupils glowing faintly. Data flooded his vision, every stat, every ability, laid bare. Target identified, Park Hajin. Condition to copy skill, raise target's interest/hostility to maximum. A slow grin crept across Jinhyuk's lips. So that's how it works. Interest for allies, hostility for enemies. Perfect. Hajin frowned. "Why are you staring at me like that?" Jinhyuk said nothing. He just took one step closer. At that moment, Park Hannah arrived, her face paling as she recognized him. "Boss," she stammered. "Hannah." Hajin turned to her. "You know this guy?" Before she could answer, Jinhyuk's hand shot out, lightning fast. A sharp crack echoed through the plaza. Hajin's scream tore through the air as Jinhyuk twisted his index finger until it snapped. The crowd fell silent. And in the reflection of his glowing eyes, Jinhyuk smiled faintly. The moment Hajin's finger turned red and swollen, he yelped in pain, clutching it dramatically. Meanwhile, Jinhyuk stood there as calm as a mountain breeze, sipping his water without a hint of concern. But then, Hajin's eyes flared with determination. He lowered his hand, and in an instant, an overwhelming surge of magic burst from it, crackling and roaring like lightning. The crowd gasped in disbelief. Someone shouted for everyone to rush to the scene, and chaos erupted as curious onlookers hurried to witness the clash. Jinhyuk's brows furrowed slightly. Something wasn't right. Before he could react further, Hajin lunged toward him, blade flashing. Jinhyuk's grip tightened on his half-empty bottle. A sharp whoosh, and a stream of water splashed straight into Hajin's face, blinding him. His strike sliced through empty air. When his vision cleared, Jinhyuk was gone. The bottle he had been holding spun lazily through the air before bouncing off Hajin's shoulder. Then, crack, a brutal kick slammed into Hajin's leg. He crumpled to the ground, screaming, clutching his knee in agony. Gasps echoed all around. Jinhyuk stood a few steps away, his back turned, completely composed. The spectators stared, stunned and speechless. Among them, Hannah's face had gone pale. Sweat ran down her cheeks as she whispered in disbelief, why is Jinhyuk here?" Before she could collect herself, a familiar voice broke through the murmurs. "Pathetic," scoffed Kitai, his arms crossed and a sour look plastered across his face. Jinhyuk turned toward him, his expression blank and unreadable. Kitai's lips twisted into a smirk as Jinhyuk activated his skill, Eye of Truth, Level 1. But a red warning blinked in front of his eyes, error, skill failed. Another notification followed immediately, skill use denied, level difference too high. Kitai's composure shattered. Rage burned in his eyes as he stepped forward, each movement radiating fury. Flames flickered faintly in his gaze, a visible sign of his power. His level was clearly above 20. "I didn't know Hajin had a babysitter," Jinhyuk said dryly, his tone dripping with mockery. Kitai snarled. "He may be a handful, but he's useful." At that, Jinhyuk's expression darkened. His eyes narrowed as he asked, "So what Hajin supplied to China? That was Jinong from the Goro dynasty, wasn't it?" Kitai froze. Then, his face twisted with rage. "How do you know that?" he roared, his teeth grinding. Reporters and spectators exchanged confused glances, unsure what the two were talking about. Jinhyuk shrugged nonchalantly. "Does it matter?" he said, smirking. "Maybe you should be asking the right question instead." A sinister gleam flashed in his eyes. "Like, how do you get rid of the side effects?" Kitai stiffened. "Wait," Kitai said, he activated Blackout Barrier Level 3. A thick, black barrier erupted around Jinhyuk, expanding like living smoke. The air rippled with energy as the walls began to close in, twisting and sealing the space in a suffocating dome of darkness. "Jinhyuk!" Taemin roared, his eyes wide with panic. Without hesitation, he threw himself toward the narrowing gap, trying to break through before it sealed completely. Inside, the world dimmed under the oppressive aura radiating from Kitai. Veins bulged across his temples, his jaw clenched tight. Flames flickered in his eyes, wild, violent, unrestrained. "Jinhyuk!" Yanawa cried out desperately, slamming her fists against the dark wall. Her voice echoed hollowly as the barrier reflected her panic back at her. Inside, Jinhyuk turned, pressing his palm lightly against the surface. It was cold and solid, impenetrable. "Is this a protective wall?" he muttered, his tone edged with disbelief. The black energy pulsed under his touch, almost like a living creature breathing in rhythm. Kitai didn't answer. He stood just beyond the barrier, his fiery eyes locked on Jinhyuk with unmasked contempt. When he finally spoke, his voice was low but sharp enough to cut through the tension. "Tell me something," he said. "Are you really asking for 10 dungeons?" Jinhyuk's gaze met his, steady and unreadable. Kitai stepped closer, his aura flaring brighter, licking at the edges of the barrier like fire testing steel. "Then prove it," he demanded, his tone dripping with challenge. "Prove you're not lying." The words hung in the air like the calm before a storm, two figures trapped between black walls and blazing fury, their clash inevitable. His glare sharpened. "What are you talking about?" Jinhyuk chuckled softly. "Oh, come on. The edible item that restores mana and stamina, Jinong from the Goro dynasty. If you just eat it raw, it causes magical poisoning." The crowd murmured in confusion. Kitai's face contorted with barely contained fury. Jinhyuk raised 3 fingers. "There are 3 things that can suppress the side effects: Karen juice, moonstone, and Mundare root. I'd bet you're looking for that last one right now." Kitai's eyes widened slightly. He said nothing, but sweat trickled down his temple. His thoughts were spinning, everything Jinhyuk said matched the scout's reports. "So?" Jinhyuk tilted his head, smiling with that wicked glint. "Do you believe me now?" Kitai hesitated, then growled, "Fine. I'll believe you." But his tone was sharp and wary. A dagger materialized in his hand, its blade glowing with fierce magic. He pointed it at Jinhyuk's face. "But I'm warning you," he said in a low, threatening voice, "no tricks. You've already demanded 10 of the most valuable dungeons. Don't push your luck." Kitai's anger seethed visibly, his jaw clenched, the blade trembling as energy surged through it. "I should end this right now," he thought bitterly. Then, something changed. Jinhyuk's expression shifted into something terrifying. A grin spread across his face, wide, unhinged. His eyes glowed with a brilliant, unnatural purple flame. "It seems," he said slowly, his voice low and dangerous, "you still don't understand." Kitai's breath caught. "Our deal," Jinhyuk continued, stepping closer, "and your life, both are in my hands." As he raised his hand, his own blade flared to life, swirling with sinister, violet energy that made the air hum. At that instant, the ground rumbled. One of the guards burst through the floor, debris flying. Chaos erupted as Jinhyuk's allies formed a defensive line. "Fall back!" Yanawa shouted furiously. "Unless you want to die." Rage still burned in Yanawa's eyes like wildfire, her fists clenched tight enough to draw blood. But before she could take another step, a sudden chime echoed through the air. Notification, Level 3 blackout barrier, cancelled. The words flashed before their eyes, and the swirling storm of magic vanished instantly. The thick energy that had been suffocating the area dispersed into nothing, leaving only silence in its wake. Yanawa exhaled shakily, her shoulders dropping as the tension drained from her body. Around her, the others began to scatter, confusion and relief mixing in their faces. Jinhyuk stepped out from the dispersing mist, brushing imaginary dust off his coat with a grin. "Hey, calm down already," he called, his tone half playful, half exasperated. "You okay, Yanawa?" Before she could answer, Timon's voice boomed from behind, "Jinhyuk. You lunatic. We thought you were kidnapped or something." They both rushed toward him, shouting and waving their arms, voices overlapping in a chaotic chorus of worry and frustration. Jinhyuk raised both hands in mock surrender, smiling. "Relax. I'm fine," he said, jerking his thumb toward the retreating figure of Kitai. "See? We had a little talk. Turns out, we actually understand each other now." Timon blinked in disbelief. "You what?" Before anyone could question further, Hajin stormed past them, fury blazing in his eyes. He stomped straight toward Kitai, his face red with rage. "You're just going to let that guy walk away like nothing happened?" he barked. Kitai didn't answer. He stood motionless, his expression unreadable. Hajin, sweating and desperate, bowed low. "Please, just give me another chance," he pleaded breathlessly. "I'll come up with a plan, I swear I can fix this." His words barely left his mouth before Kitai's hand shot forward. In one swift, brutal motion, he struck Hajin across the neck. The sound was sharp, a dull thud that silenced everyone nearby. Kitai lifted him effortlessly by the collar, holding him several feet above the ground like a rag doll. "Understand this," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "Jinhyuk is stronger than any of you. Remember that." Hajin's face turned red as veins bulged across his neck. He gasped for air, saliva dripping from his lips. I understand, he choked out, trembling. Kitai's eyes burned with disdain. If you pull something like that again, he let the threat hang in the air before releasing Hajin. The young man collapsed to the ground with a thud, coughing and wheezing as Kitai and his guild walked away. Hajin stared after them, his jaw trembling. What happened in there? He whispered, the question aimed at no one. His face twisted with rage, and a dark fire ignited in his eyes. No one humiliates me and gets away with it, he thought bitterly. No one. Then, notification, hostility toward target has reached maximum. Condition met, skill copy available. Jinhyuk's eyes gleamed as another message appeared. Skill, stealth, has been copied. Type, passive. Description, control your breathing and pulse to erase presence. Skill stored within the world's memory. A slow, satisfied grin crept across his face. Watching Hajin seethe with hatred, Jinhyuk's smile grew sharper, darker. He turned away, slipping his hands into his pockets as murmurs of "oh" rippled through the crowd. All around him, players whispered his name. Some in admiration. Some in fear. On the ranking board above the plaza, Hana's name still shone at the top, first place, 1,755 points. Jinhyuk tilted his head, amused. So the trainee actually drank mountain ginseng, huh? He muttered under his breath, crossing his arms. Not bad. Before he could say more, a voice called from nearby, next candidate, please enter the testing chamber. Stepping forward, Jinhyuk pushed open the door. The room was spacious and sterile, glowing with pale blue light. At the center stood a massive crystal pulsing faintly with magic. Beside it, a man in uniform greeted him with a clipboard in hand. The test is simple, the man explained, gesturing toward the stone. Strike the magic crystal with your weapon or skills. Anything goes, magic, abilities, physical force. The stronger your impact, the better your score. The crystal's true power reveals itself under attack. The examiner's eyes drifted to the blade in Jinhyuk's hand. Wait, are you really planning to use only that? Jinhyuk smirked and raised the weapon casually. This is all I need. All right then, the examiner said uncertainly, rubbing his chin. He tapped something on his tablet, activating the system. Begin whenever you're ready. But before he could step back, his eyes widened in alarm. Jinhyuk wasn't standing in front of the designated crystal anymore. Instead, he had strolled over to a much larger one at the far end of the room, the kind meant for high-rank evaluations. Wait, the examiner stammered, his voice rising. That's not the one you're supposed to hit? Jinhyuk merely smiled, his blade gleaming under the blue light. I know. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.